Hey, everybody, and welcome to Adapt or Perish, episode 123, Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio. We may have been a little ambitious with this one, so strap in for an extra long episode. But before we join the little wooden boy on his adventures, let's talk about our next episode. We've been steadily working our way through the library of classic stories of orphan children, and if I check the list, it looks like yes, Pollyanna will be the next one. Those poor fictional children. In our next episode, we'll be discussing Eleanor H. Porter's original 1913 novel and screen adaptations released from 1920 all the way to 2003. That'll be out in 1 month on Tuesday, March 7th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our monthly bonus show, Adapt or Perish Plus, with episodes releasing between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adaptorperishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapt or Perish, episode 123, Pinocchio. Welcome to Adapt or Perish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I'm Ari Lipshaw, and today we are talking about Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio.
I'm so sorry.
I'm very sorry.
I'm not apologizing to them. I'm apologizing to you.
Yeah, thank you. I accept that. You owe me an apology.
This is a beautiful gift we're providing to our listeners.
Yes.
I feel like you're the only person who's suffering through this experience.
Yeah, this is true. This is a beautiful gift of so many. Did you know how many times Pinocchio's been adapted? So many. We watched so many Pinocchios, so you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
When we went into this, you've been talking for like years about doing Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Did you know there were so many?
Yeah, I had an
Were
idea.
you familiar with the fact that there were so many?
I mean, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do it.
I mean, we had a classic Adapt or Perish, like we almost fought situation happen because occasionally this happens that we think we're done and then you go, I'm so sorry. There's one more and it's 3 hours long.
Yeah, okay, first of all,
that did happen.
Yes, that has happened before.
Yes.
And yes, it happened this time.
Yes.
But
But
I feel like our conversation about that one was actually a lot shorter than it has been in the past. Because sometimes we've had a fight about it.
yeah.
And I've said, hey, miniseries, sorry, I forgot it's 3 hours. Let's do it. And you're like, no. And then we fight
Yeah.
in a civil way.
Right.
This time, I said, I'm so sorry. Here's the thing. You're like, God damn it. And I said, and it stars Bob Hoskins. And you're like, well, obviously we have to watch that one.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even a fight. You were mad at the situation, but
Yeah.
you weren't really mad at me for wanting to do it.
Yeah. I'm looking at the image that you created, like
Mhm.
for the social and everything that you pulled up so we could have a bit of a pictorial reference. It really is like just truly disturbing. Just the range.
I mean, I feel like one of the things we could
Oh
do
my
is
God.
just rank them in terms of how much of a pickle Pinocchio is to look at.
I mean, the one on the top, third from the left, that looks like a leprosy patient, I think is the one I'm gonna go with.
Are you going to keep and make note of that so when we get to that one, you can tell everyone which one you're talking about?
Yeah, that's fine.
I am excited about this because I feel like there's obviously a lot of different types of episodes that we do. And there's a subcategory of ones that Jeremy wants to do that Ari doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
Then you can subdivide those into two further categories, which are ones that I want to do that you don't want to do that I can convince you to do,
Yeah.
and ones that I can't.
Yes.
So, okay, in the bonus show, we've been going through the backlog of episodes that, by the way, Patreon, everyone join. It's fun. We talk about episodes we're not going to do.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that I just talked about at length on the bonus show is The Thing, which was the Thing from Another World in the John Carpenter movie. Like, we're never going to do it, even though I want to do it and you don't want to, because I will never convince you to watch it.
Correct.
Like, it'll never happen.
Correct.
It's horror. It's gross. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the fact that it's not really something our audience is really into.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the deciding factor.
You often become the voice of the audience in our conversations.
Yes. For example, you know what else we're never going to do? Well, I don't like to say never. You know what else we're never going to do?
Yeah.
Dune.
No, never.
Never.
It was on our list, like at one point
At one time.
as a thing we could do.
Yeah.
But no, we're not going to do Dune.
We're not going to do Dune.
But this was one of those ones that's the other category, which is ones that I want to do that you don't want to do that I can convince you to do.
You did, yes, because you said our audience would want to listen to it, and who am I if not, here for the audience?
Delightful children's entertainment.
Yep.
As always, I mean, this has come up.
One of them is not for children.
Which one? Oh, yeah. No, that one totally isn't. Yes, The Erotic Adventures of Pinocchio is not for children. But anyway, I feel like the thing that's been happening to us more and more as time goes on, as we start to do like the bigger episodes, is we really have to limit ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't look at all of them because it's impossible.
Yes.
For example, Les Mis, we said, okay, we'll look at the English language ones and the French language ones.
Yes.
Because that made sense.
We did that for Three Musketeers too, I think.
We did.
Yeah. I think that has been a good guideline historically, which is like English language, because that's the language we happen to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are significant ones in the language of origin, we'll do those too. So we watched a lot of Italian Pinocchios and one Russian for some reason.
Well, that one, but this is the other thing, is like occasionally we'll watch one that falls outside of that if it just seems like it's going to be particularly fun to watch.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons why we've done like Bollywood in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really done Bollywood as much anymore, and it bums me out a little bit, but we can't do everything.
We can't do everything.
So with this one, we had to be really selective. So not only did we focus on just English language and Italian, we couldn't even do all of those.
Yeah.
For example, last year, I don't think it came out last year, but it came out in the last couple of years. Like, obviously, there was the big Disney live-action remake of Pinocchio that came out last year, and the Guillermo del Toro stop-motion one. Both of those came out. We're covering both of those at the in the back end of this episode. But another one that came out is Pinocchio, A True Story, with Pauly Shore as the voice of Pinocchio, which looks terrible.
Yeah.
And is just, no one has seen it, no one is talking about it, and it seems to be just a blip on the radar of Pinocchio adaptations. We didn't cover that one.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of weird animated ones that we're just not covering because we're talking about 16 different Pinocchios, 16 and a half Pinocchios. It's too many. So we had to limit ourselves.
By any standard.
And I made a crack the other day that like, this isn't going to be like Christmas Carol. I don't know that we're ever going to take a second pass at Pinocchio unless people demand it.
No.
Yeah,
even then.
No. I'm not saying if people ask for it, if people demand it.
I would say to you, the current listener, if you are not satisfied that we watched 16 different versions of Pinocchio, I would invite you to go elsewhere for your Pinocchio listening pleasure.
What is your experience with Pinocchio?
I am familiar with the Disney cartoon Pinocchio.
Yeah. Familiar with the character, obviously.
Familiar with the character. I had, when I was little, one of those wooden Pinocchio dolls with like different size noses that you can screw on, like
based on how deceitful you wanted him to be in that moment.
The classic Pinocchio doll.
Mm-hmm.
The only other time that I think we really discussed Pinocchio is that we had a bit of a scuffle playing 20 questions a little while back.
I mean, it wasn't so much a scuffle as I was wrong about something and you corrected me and I was embarrassed.
Well, you led me astray.
Well, thank you for bringing this up. I love that you're bringing this up in front of everyone. Show my entire ass to everybody.
You led me astray because when we do 20 questions, we usually just do like real people or like fictional characters. We don't usually do like places or things.
Just in case anyone thinks we're the type of people that just sit around in the house and go, "Hey, I want to play 20 questions."
We'd only do it in the car.
Yeah.
We only do it on long car rides, and usually you have to talk me into it because I don't really like it.
Has anyone ever had the experience of playing 20 questions and you ask a question of the other person and they give you an answer and the answer is very specific and it really limits the number of options that you have.
Yes.
And it sets you on a path in terms of the possibilities.
Yeah.
And then you find out at the end that like the first question you asked, the answer was wrong.
Yes.
So of course you're never going to get it.
Yeah. Jeremy has this 20 questions thing where he likes to pick difficult things.
I don't know how much detail you need to give for this.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
Is this the airing of grievances?
I'm just saying it is not the first time I've been frustrated with you playing 20 questions, which is why I don't really like to play it. I'd rather sit in silence. But I think the question was something like, is this character the work of a specific author? as opposed to like, is it a folk tale? And you said no, it isn't. And so I went off on like a tangent of like Robin Hood and like, like folk characters.
I thought Pinocchio was a folktale. I just wasn't aware in that moment. I'd never needed to care about it, and so I never did care about it.
Yeah.
I'd never been called to care about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't care that Pinocchio is actually the work of an author.
Yes. And then we got to the end and I was very frustrated and I couldn't get it. And you said, well, it's Pinocchio. And I said, okay, but Pinocchio was written by Carlo Collodi, so I can't. This is very difficult for me. Anyway.
Yeah, and then I said to you, I'm very sorry. A, I'm very sorry. B, I'm very embarrassed.
Yes.
And C, please don't ever tell anybody about this because of my embarrassment.
Yes. Well, now I'm telling X number of people.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that unpleasant incident, what has been your experience of Pinocchio?
The Disney version. I'm looking at all of these. Yeah, basically just the Disney version.
Yeah.
Like my experience with Pinocchio was knowing, it's the Disney one that I had grown up watching.
Yeah.
I knew there were a ton of other ones. I feel like none of them really took up any space in my brain. The only one that I feel like ever took up space in my brain, and I never saw it, was the Roberto Benigni one, the 2002 one.
Yeah.
Because it's like universally reviled.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that it's terrible.
Yeah.
And it just always delighted me that such a colossal misfire could exist in the world. Obviously, like Roberto Benigni playing Pinocchio, that's crazy. Obviously. But I'd never seen it. And that was it. Though that was my experience with Pinocchio. I don't know if you know this, but until recently, I didn't even know who Carlo Collodi was. Did you know that?
I did know that. The story of Pinocchio, I don't want to spend too much time on because it is pretty straightforward. And I think most people are generally aware. I think there's stuff in the original story that is a tone shift from how people tend to think about Pinocchio that I would like to kind of mention.
Yeah.
There's a little wooden boy that has been brought to semi-life.
Well, hang on. I've got back of the book. I can go through this.
Okay, great.
Briefly. And just for background, this was the book was originally published in 1883. It was serialized before that in Giornale per I Bambini, newspaper for children.
Gotcha.
Written by Carlo Lorenzini, who was writing as Carlo Collodi.
Gotcha.
The Adventures of Pinocchio, Story of a Puppet. I got two things. First of all, I have a back of the book. Second of all, I don't know if people have been hearing about this ChatGPT thing.
We're on the bleeding edge. We're on the bleeding edge of trends.
I asked ChatGPT to do my homework for me.
Yeah.
I was interested to see what ChatGPT would give me for a synopsis of the book. And I'm going to read that one too, because I think it's important to talk about. So here's the back of the book, shall I?
Go for it.
This is the story of Pinocchio, filled with harrowing yet inspiring adventures. Carved by a poor man named Geppetto, Pinocchio is a wooden puppet that comes to life. He soon leaves his maker and commences a journey of misadventures. Pinocchio has a good heart, but he is disobedient and lazy and often has poor judgment. And when he lies, Pinocchio's nose grows longer. Follow this mischievous puppet as he goes to the Field of Miracles, where he plants gold coins to try to make his wealth grow. Thrill as he is pursued by assassins, and marvel as he becomes the unwitting star of a circus show and lives a life of ease in the land of boobies, where boys can play all day and never have to go to school. Of course, Pinocchio gets into trouble along the way, from the villainous cat and fox who try to steal his gold coins to the gigantic dogfish, a terrifying sea monster that swallows him. Pinocchio encounters menacing characters who often lead him to trouble. But Pinocchio also befriends a good fairy who loves him and wants to help him escape his misfortunes. She even promises the puppet that if he learns to be good, to study, and to work hard, he will become a real boy. Can Pinocchio turn his life around? And will he ever see his papa Geppetto again? That's a pretty good back of the book.
That's not bad.
It gets a lot of the stuff in there.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Can I read the ChatGPT synopsis?
Yeah, go for it.
The story is about a wooden puppet named Pinocchio, who is brought to life by a fairy and must prove himself worthy of becoming a real boy.
Not brought to life by a fairy.
Well, okay, so I'm not even going to read the rest of it because that's the important part. Is that I asked like 5 times for it to give me a synopsis, and every single time it included the idea that the fairy is what brought him to life.
Yeah.
So
that's the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the thing that is really, I mean, as you were saying, like, it's super important here at the beginning to talk about the fact that it is crazy to me that Pinocchio is 2 things now and has been for a long time. Like, Pinocchio is the book, but Pinocchio is also the 1940 Disney version.
Yeah, I think we need to consider the 1940 Disney version just as much a source material for these Pinocchios that followed. And I think, one thing that might be kind of interesting is just a determination of which of these are based on the book and which of these are based on the Disney movie Pinocchio.
Yeah. And if we're going by the Blue Fairy, like, it's super easy.
Yes.
Because in any version, and there's so many of them.
Well, any version produced by Disney, like it's
well,
fairly
obviously,
obvious.
but any version where the fairy brings him to life at the beginning,
Yeah.
like, okay, there's no way that you came up with that on your own. There's no way you thought, like, you know what'd be nice? You read the book and go like, man, it'd be really cool if the Blue Fairy actually brought him to life.
Yeah.
But I've never seen that Disney version.
Yeah. So in the book, it's just like a stump of wood that behaves weird. And
It
laughs, and someone thinks it might be a good idea to make it into a puppet, and then the puppet is animated.
From what I remember in the book, the first guy finds it.
Right, correct.
And is like, I'm going to carve it. And then it starts laughing. And he's like, this freaks me out. I'm going to give it to Geppetto.
Yes.
And Geppetto says, I'm going to make a puppet. But Geppetto doesn't know that it laughs.
Right.
And so when he makes the puppet comes to life.
Right. And I guess the other thing that I would say, again, I sort of referenced this sort of tonal shift between the 1940 movie that we're all familiar with and the book that we read, is that like Pinocchio's personality is less like curious, wide-eyed, innocent, naive youth and more like actual toddler. Like,
yeah.
like what a toddler is actually like. And I think it became very clear to us watching these when the creators A, had kids, young kids, and B, were actively basing the portrayal of Pinocchio on those kids, because there were definitely some moments of like, yep, that's what our kid does when he's being real shitty. I think Pinocchio is just shittier and more petulant than we remember from the Pinocchio in sort of common parlance. It's instructional. It's like instructional morality for how to behave and like listen to your parents.
Yeah. Again, my experience was the Disney version. And the Disney version, you can say a lot of things about it. One of them is that it's a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
The book is just shit happens. Sometimes Pinocchio happens some stuff, and sometimes stuff happens to Pinocchio. But there's no like story. It is for me to sit down and start reading it and hope that there's going to be this like arc throughout the thing and like any through lines. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
The things just happen, and that doesn't mean it's bad. There's lots of stories like that. There's lots of books like that. But like, it's not a neat and tidy little story where each scene flows into the next one.
Yeah. Well, as you pointed out, it was serialized, right? In like a magazine. So it's probably one of those things where like the author himself like didn't necessarily know when he was going to end it. It's like, well, I'll keep writing this as long as people are into it, and then as soon as they're not into it, I'll bring it to a conclusion. So yeah, I think that probably is a pretty good jumping off point again for talking about these 16 versions that we need to get through. And if there's anything else we need to refer to from the book, we can do that as we go.
Can I just say two quick things about the book?
Sure.
Tonally, the book is incredibly absurd.
Yes.
Like, the book is not realistic at all. And I'm not saying realistic in that like a puppet comes to life. I'm saying Pinocchio himself is fantastical, but also the world he lives in is fantastical.
Yes.
Like, weird stuff happens all the time to everybody, and
Yes.
everyone's just kind of fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally a talking cricket.
Yeah. Like, the world is not realistic at all.
Yes.
And I think that's important to say. The other thing, too, is this book is really funny.
Yeah.
But, like, funny from, as an adult reading it, it's really funny because, again, Pinocchio is such a little shithead that the book has a very harsh sense of humor.
Well, he kills the cricket.
Yes.
And bites off the cat's hand.
That was the thing I was always waiting for. That was the part that shocked me when the cat and the fox are like, they're the assassins.
Assassini.
And they're attacking him, and he like bites off the cat's hand.
Yeah.
He doesn't like bite the hand.
Yeah.
Or bite off a finger.
He bites off the
hand. He bites off the hand. And that was the one that was like, holy shit, I never knew this happened. I am going to be keeping an eye out for this. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be in the Guillermo del Toro version. It wasn't in any of them. Not in a single one.
No one had the cojones to have a little boy puppet literally bite off a cat's hand. God damn it.
I'm so mad about it.
What's become of this world?
And then later, there's another moment in the book that also involves eating things that generally aren't eaten. Is after he becomes a donkey, he's thrown into the ocean to be drowned so they can skin him, which, as we all remember from the Disney version.
Yeah.
And the way he becomes not a donkey anymore is a whole bunch of fish come and eat away the donkey parts until he is just the puppet
That
part.
was in at least one of them.
No, but it wasn't.
They didn't eat him.
That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
it was in one version where, like, the fish swarm the donkey and then they apart and he's a puppet again.
Right.
I'm saying like it very specifically says the fish came and ate all the parts of him that aren't a donkey.
No, I understand.
And I wanted to see it and I never did, and I'm real sad about it.
All right. Would you like to talk about the 1940 Disney movie cleverly entitled Pinocchio?
Yes. Direction was supervised by Ben Sharpstein and Hamilton Lusk from a story by Ted Sears, Otto Englander, Webb Smith, William Cottrell, William Cabo, Erdman Penner, and Aurelius Battaglia.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to go ahead and say something that I think might surprise people.
Okay.
Might shock people.
Hot take?
This is a pretty hot take. I mean, this is the classic one. Like, this is the one where if the world was told you can only bring one version of Pinocchio to a desert island,
Yeah.
people are going to vote for the 1940 Disney version, right?
Yeah.
Here's my hot take. It's a very good movie.
It's a good movie.
It's very good.
It's very good.
Like-
I no 10 out of 10, no notes.
Like I'm not here to poop on it. I do think there are a lot of things that work in it. I do think there are some things that don't work in it,
Mm-hmm.
but we can get into that. But at the end of the day, like, this is a very, very good movie.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I do agree. I do agree. There are definitely like some things that like as you say, you sort of accept without questioning because it's such a classic, and then when you're watching it in the context of like really thinking about Pinocchio, becomes unclear. Like cuckoo clocks are not Italian.
Well, that's a thing. That's the thing that doesn't work.
Yeah. But that got
Well, I mean, it works. It doesn't really work from our perspective of examining it as an adaptation of Pinocchio.
Exactly. I became confused, and then of course every other version has like Geppetto's a cuckoo clock maker, and I actually had to look it up because I was like, am I confused? I thought they were German. They are German. Famously, like a symbol of Germany is the cuckoo clock. I did write down at one point, this is closer to the book than I expected. There's a plus for it. I don't know what specifically I was referring to, except then I wrote, except the cricket's alive. Because that's the other
Yes.
thing. Like Jiminy Cricket is a creation of Disney.
Mm-hmm.
There is a talking cricket in the book, but it doesn't make it because Pinocchio kills it.
Well, he kills it, but it comes back.
It comes back.
It's not the same thing at all.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that I think one of the funniest things that I read about the making of it is that the person who did the character design for Jiminy Cricket, like apparently the original character design looked like a cricket, and apparently Disney was like, no, that's nope.
Too weird.
Too weird, needs to be friendlier. So they redesigned it and made something that's closer to what we know as Jiminy Cricket now. And apparently the original designer said he was a cricket because we said he was a cricket.
Right.
Like there's nothing cricket about him
I'm
at
like
all.
looking at an image of him right now, and you're right. Like again, one of the things you sort of don't question, but yeah, he doesn't look like a cricket. He doesn't look anything like a cricket.
But we don't question it.
yes.
Another thing about Jiminy Cricket, and I'm not saying this works or doesn't work, just something I never really thought about. He's super bad at his job.
Yeah.
Like, if he is Pinocchio's conscience, he never acts as Pinocchio's conscience at all.
Yeah.
Like, he almost never gives Pinocchio advice. It rarely happens. And Pinocchio certainly never does anything. Like, I'm not even saying Pinocchio's like, I've heard your advice and I'm going to do that. Or I've heard your advice and I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Pinocchio's usually just like, I'm doing something. Jiminy, you're talking. Well, I'm going to continue doing the thing I'm doing. Like, Pinocchio never seems to even listen to Jiminy.
Yeah. I mean, not for nothing, this character of Jiminy Cricket, this completely invented character, gets in this movie the song, which is arguably like the seminal Disney song. He
Yeah.
sings When You Wish Upon a Star, which is like if you go on a Disney cruise and they like sound the horn, it plays When You Wish Upon a Star. If you watch any Disney movie, like that's what you hear when the little like castle icon at the beginning, comes on the screen.
Is literally in the Pinocchio remake.
Yeah.
That like the castle is there and the music is playing and Jiminy like floats in with his umbrella and starts talking to the audience.
Yeah.
Because of course he's going to. You're getting out of one of the things that works. The songs are amazing.
Yes.
They are amazing.
Yeah.
It was incredibly refreshing to watch a Disney movie that had songs that weren't written by the fucking Sherman Brothers. Who like
what you have against the Sherman Brothers?
They
were war heroes.
I don't have anything to say about the service they provided to the country at all. I just think that they had a very limited set of tools when it came to songwriting, and they tended to write the three same songs over and over and over again.
All right.
These songs are bangers.
Yeah.
Like bangers all. When You Wish Upon a Star, Give a Little Whistle, Hi Diddle Dee.
I got no strings.
I've got no strings. Holy shit. And I'm going to come back to that scene in a second too.
Sure.
The music is incredible. There's not that many songs in it, but each one is a perfect song.
Yeah.
Like they're perfect. No notes. They're perfect.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the songs are good. What else do you think works
The songs
about
are great.
The songs are great. What else works about this version?
The animation's incredible.
It's so good.
Like, it's incredible. I get really bored with people who are like, the only good animation comes out of Disney animation studios. Like, I just find it kind of boring. But if I was going to try to argue that point, I would probably show people Pinocchio. Like, the two scenes that get me, there's the first scene where Geppetto is actually using Pinocchio as a marionette at the beginning before Pinocchio's been brought to life by the Blue Fairy. And it is crazy to me how realistic it looks. I just utterly believe it. Remember when we did 101 Dalmatians, and at the very beginning there's the shot of Pongo,
Like a really good dog.
and it's like the most dog I've ever seen a dog be ever. They perfectly captured the essence of dog. This is like they perfectly captured the essence of marionette.
Yes.
It looks the physics of it look perfect. He has weight. The strings actually connect. It's amazing. But then in the I've got no strings scene, that's some of the best animation I've ever seen. And I just feel like it's subtle, but what they're doing is so impressive because the stage is full of real marionettes and Pinocchio. So Pinocchio doesn't necessarily move like a person. He moves like a marionette, but he moves like something kind of a cross between. But the marionettes are all exaggerated marionettes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all very much on strings.
Yeah.
I just think the animation is incredible.
Yeah.
Like Pinocchio as an animated character is amazing. Like the people, yes, it has Geppetto, who's much more of the hand-drawn character, and they have the Blue Fairy, who's kind of the classic Disney rotoscope character where they like actually shot film of a lady and just drew over it, like the way they did Alice from Alice in Wonderland, like that kind of thing. And I don't like the rotoscope stuff as much as I do the hand-drawn stuff, but it still looks really good.
Yeah.
Jiminy is a fantastic character. It's great. Like the animation is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and that scene where they're where he's dancing with the other marionettes. I did note that there's a lot of boobs for a Disney movie. Movie on those puppets. The animators were a little horny back then. Anything else?
Like the story. This is the thing I was saying before. The story works. If what you're doing is you're looking for a really faithful adaptation of the book, you're going to be really disappointed. But what you get instead is a story that is much clearer and works more as a beginning to end story than the book does. Because the book isn't even really trying to do that. The characters are there, the plot's there, all the scenes are totally different, the tone is completely different. Nobody dies. Nobody tries to kill anybody. Pinocchio doesn't bite any hands off. Nothing. Well, that never happens in any of them, which bums me out. And I feel like normally I would say, well, this is a negative criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even say this is negative or positive. Like it is different, but it works, and it managed to work so well that it became its own thing.
Mm-hmm. Any negatives?
You already brought it up. Why is everything German? This is a thing that I didn't know was going to be important to me. I've discovered that I really value a Pinocchio that takes place in Italy.
Yeah.
That's like obviously Italy.
Yes.
Right? And there are a lot of versions where like it doesn't look like any place in particular, so it could be Italy. This is Germany.
Yes, with Italian names.
Right?
Yeah. But he's wearing like lederhosen. Like that's another thing. Again, it goes unquestioned. The classic Pinocchio costume is like traditional German attire.
Yeah, the little feather in the cap.
Yeah,
and
like
everything.
this is like classic German.
Yeah. It looks like Heidi would be up the mountain with a little Pinocchio next to her.
Yeah, and like I don't think it's like unreasonable to say like, well, an Italian could just as easily carve a German style puppet. Like that's fine, but like it is a little bit. It's just it goes unremarked on in a way that if you think about it, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, that to me doesn't work from our perspective.
Well, and the other thing too, not for nothing, is that we watched numerous versions where Pinocchio is the style of Pinocchio is in fact distinctly Italian and is modeled on Italian commedia tropes, right?
Yeah.
And his outfit is like Punchinello, like the Italian puppet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they seem to have, whether intentionally or not, actively not do that like classic looking Italian Pinocchio. They're doing something different.
Here's my final thing that doesn't work. I already said it. Characters and plot's all there, but the scenes are totally different. Nobody dies. Nobody tries to kill anybody, etc., etc. This is one of my favorite things that I found through all of this. So apparently there was a storyboard artist at Disney who had been tasked with coming up with a new outline for the story. Walt Disney found the book, or was given the book, and said, we should do this. Bianca Majoli was the artist, said, go do an outline. And apparently that first outline was shown to him, and he rejected it because he felt it was too faithful to the book.
Great.
And I was shocked when I heard that. And it was validating to find out that he very specifically didn't want something that was close to the book.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. Like, it makes sense because Walt Disney Animation Studios doesn't make things that are tonally like the book Pinocchio.
Right.
So it makes perfect sense to me. They ended up Disneyfying it. And sometimes I feel like that's a pejorative, but in this case, no, they Disneyfied it and they made something that is classic that will live on for the rest of time.
Sure.
1940s Pinocchio, really good.
Really good. Jeremy just asked me to intro the next one, which I think is very funny because I forgot we had watched it until this moment in time, because all I have written down is The Adventures of Bucatino 1960.
So, Buratino, you're thinking of Bucatini.
Bucatini.
Which is a pasta.
Which is a pasta. The Adventures of Buratino 1960, which I could not find in my notes because, as I say, I didn't write anything down after it.
It was, so 1959, I think, technically.
Okay, so I'm wrong about
It doesn't matter. The Adventures of Bucatini, 1960.
You know what? Introduce it your goddamn self.
So here's the thing that I wasn't really aware of. In 1936, there was a Soviet writer named Alexei Nikolaevich Tolstoy.
Not the Tolstoy.
Not the Tolstoy, a Tolstoy. Published a reworked version of Pinocchio titled The Golden Key or The Adventures of Buratino. Apparently, this became one of the most popular characters of Russian children's literature.
Fantastic.
It was huge. So, like the Soviet Union claimed Pinocchio for themselves and renamed him Puppet.
This all tracks.
So, because I thought it was just this movie, but no, this movie represents a whole sub-classification of Pinocchio adaptations. There's way more Soviet ones, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this one represents all of the Soviet ones, all of the Russian ones. We just really wanted to watch a Soviet animated movie. It's directed by Dmitry Babachenko and Ivan Ivanov Vano from a screenplay by Nikolai Erdman and Ludmila Tolstaya. Wow, this one's weird.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's less than 20 years since the Disney one came out, and we really see this is what happens when an animation studio is not Disney.
It's not Disney.
And I'm not saying because of Disney the man, I'm saying because of Disney the institution.
Well,
they attract talent.
Yeah. Well, both is not Disney and is also operating in a very specific zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Right? This is peak Soviet mentality.
So it is way closer to the book, which in this case is the golden key.
Right.
So there is this whole bullshit where he finds a golden key and it opens a door. And honestly, I don't even remember what's on the other side of the door.
I have no recollection of any of this.
All I know is that that's a big part of this version of it. And that's in all of the different Russian ones. But other than that, it is way more faithful to the original story.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the big scenes. So Pinocchio goes to the puppet show, and yeah, there's the puppet show scene, but unlike the Disney version where he gets hired to be an actor and does a puppet show with real marionettes, in the book, he goes to watch a puppet show, and all of the puppets go, everyone, it's Pinocchio. How they know that it's Pinocchio, how they know that this new puppet's name is Pinocchio
Unclear.
is completely unclear in the book, but all of the marionettes know him. They're also alive because they can all talk and walk and stuff. And he has a whole thing where what's the guy's name? Manjafuko?
Manjafuko, yeah.
He's the guy who...
Fire Eater.
Yeah, the Fire Eater. He's the one who he's the one running the puppet show, and he's going to throw Pinocchio on the fire to cook his meat, and then he doesn't, and Pinocchio ends up tugging on his heartstrings, and he sneezes when he's sad, and it's a whole thing. There's a whole sequence that happens there. It's just not in the Disney version at all. It is in this one, and it is in a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes a scene that is in pretty much any version that's trying to be more faithful to the book. This scene ends up being there.
Yeah.
So that's there. That's good.
Yeah.
I think that works. Buratino's definitely more of a chaos demon.
Yeah.
In the book.
Yeah.
Way more, which was really shocking coming from the Disney one. We were like, man, Pinocchio in the Disney one, he's just a sweet kid.
Yeah.
You know? In the book, Pinocchio's like, you're telling me to do this. How's about fuck that and I'll do this other thing?
Yes.
Pinocchio in the Disney version never says that. He's always like, you told me to do that and I will do it. And then someone else comes along and says, you should do a different thing. And he's like, oh,
Okay.
that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Everyone, she's just doing an impression of our 3-year-old. Sure.
Oh, sure.
He's very cute.
It's so cute.
So do you agree with that? That like Buratino in this version is more like the book? Do you remember? Let me ask you this. Do you remember that?
No. No.
What? Do you remember anything from this?
No, I truly, like, honest to God, like, I could lie. Do you want, I mean, I could sit here and tell you a whole story about everything that I remember from watching this,
Mhm.
and it would be a lie. So, and my nose would grow. So I shan't.
Do you remember? This is one of the things that I think doesn't work. Do you remember the marionette that is singing the song about Malvina the entire time, about his lost love, Malvina?
Nope.
Who's always crying?
I don't
It's not the Harlequin. It might be the Harlequin.
Sweetie, like, it could be on the moon, for
Am-
all I recall. Like,
Am I just saying words at you?
yeah, a little bit. I do remember the next one. So, like, I have much to say. So I just want to be clear. Like, I remember a lot of these. I don't remember this one.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Well, just a couple more things about this one. They do make some of it make sense a bit more than the book does. So, like, there's a thing where he gets arrested after the fox and the cat steal his money. But, like, he gets arrested, which is crazy. That's the absurdity of it. But in this version, like, the fox and the cat are actively framing him
Yep.
for stealing money.
Yep.
And so that's why he's arrested. And, like, you know what? That actually kind of makes sense. Here are the things that I thought didn't work. I'll try to get through these quick. The animation, incredibly fluid,
Mm-hmm.
but lacks all weight and character.
Yeah.
Like, it's the stuff that Disney is so good at, is like characters seem to have momentum and weight. In this one, things move all the time, but nothing ever really moves with any.
I do remember that. They're all just kind of shuffly.
Well, that's also in a later one too.
Yeah.
And they kind of share that. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's just constantly moving, but not necessarily in a way that it's just uncanny.
Yeah, they're antsy.
Yeah, that's
We
not
got
good.
ants in the pants.
We took our kid. I don't know if people from the Northeast know Storyland in New Hampshire, but like, this movie is to Storyland what the original Disney version is to Disneyland.
I think that puts Storyland in a harsh light.
Well,
Storyland is great.
No, Storyland's fun, and so
but
is
you're
this
right,
version.
it's not Disney.
Yeah,
you're right.
like,
It's not Disney.
It's not like they have a team of Imagineers working on everything.
No,
like,
and it's a little bit run down. It's still fun. Still
Yes.
fun for the kids.
totally. I don't think the other puppets work in this. Like, all the puppets are alive, and all it's doing is it's making me think even more and more about the fact that, like, well, Pinocchio's not special for being a puppet that's alive because all these other puppets are alive too.
Yeah.
I didn't think that worked. And then the puppet constantly crying about Malvina, like, he gets a song break multiple times in the movie to sing this really sad song about his lost love, Malvina.
I think I must have blacked it out.
And it's nothing, and I hate it. And then finally, key and door. Literally, this was my last note. Is just, what's this key and door bullshit? And then apparently I stopped paying attention, or just decided not to take any notes after that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care.
I didn't care.
It's like, if you're going to go ahead and make huge changes from the original source material, at least be like Disney and make it an adaptation for the ages that will stick in my mind. This is just like, no, they're making changes
There's
that weren't in the book, but I
there's a
don't
door,
care.
I don't know.
Do you want to finish this one up, or do you want to go to the next one?
Let's go to the next one. This was an unexpected delight in a surprising way.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the way that you would expect. Not in
the way you would hope.
Not in the way you would hope. Not in the way that involves actually enjoying the production.
Because we didn't.
Because we didn't. So go on. What is this?
This is the 1965 TV special simply titled Pinocchio, directed by Nick Kavinga, from a script and score, yes, it is a musical, by Jim Eiler,
Mhm.
performed by Jim Eiler and the Prince Street Players.
Yes.
Little background. They did a number of these. Like, there was, I believe they also, they did stage stuff, but there were a number of TV specials that were all done by the same people. In 1965, they did Jack and the Beanstalk and Pinocchio. In 1967, they did Aladdin and the Emperor's New Clothes. So
Yeah.
this was not their only rodeo.
Yeah. And apparently, so these were plays that they wrote and produced at their theater, the Prince Street Players, but were famously performed like in community theaters like around the country. Like these are well-known scripts.
Yeah.
If you're like, a little church theater and you want to put on Aladdin or Pinocchio or whatever it may be. So I suspect there are people out there that if you played them some of the songs from this like 1965 Pinocchio, they would be like, oh yeah, I remember that, or I was in it, like my church put it on or something like that.
Yeah.
This is the one that as I'm just looking at our reference image, the way that so Pinocchio is played by just a person, just a man.
His name is John Joy.
Yep.
Just
grown man.
A full-grown man.
Full-grown man.
I believe 30s, 40s, something like that.
Yeah, in that range.
Uh-huh.
And then the way that they've chosen to represent his nose, his puppet nose, is they've just painted like sort of a dark circle on the tip of his nose.
Well, it was a prosthetic.
Yeah.
They gave him like he has a false nose.
He has something on.
It's not his nose, it's a false one.
Yeah. But in this particular image, it does look like he has no nose and it just has a shadow of where his nose used to be, just from the angle that I'm looking at it. Like, it looks like, unfortunately, leprosy has advanced to the stage that his nose has withered away.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what it looks like to me, and I think this has a lot to do with the context of the moment. It looks like frostbite.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. We are recording this, by the way, in the middle of the
record
sub-zero temperatures that the Northeast is experiencing at the moment.
Yes.
It's super great.
It's frosty out there.
Yeah, so John Joy's Pinocchio, David Lyle plays Geppetto, Jim Eiler, the creator, he plays the coachman.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, here's the thing that I think works about this. It is very clear to me that all these people enjoy working with each other.
Yes.
They're having a lot of fun up there.
Yes.
I tell you what.
Yes.
Jim Eiler more than anyone. So there's a whole musical number that happens when they get to Pleasure Island or whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah.
He's the coachman. He's got his cloak on, and he's doing this like amazing cloak performance.
Sort of a cloak dance.
Yeah, doing a whole dance. His cloak's going up in the air, going back and forth. He's having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And David Lyle as Geppetto is having a lot of fun too.
Yeah. David Lyle as Geppetto was the one person that I did cringe a number of times. He was not quite on his note as he was attempting to sing.
Few were.
Yeah. He also is like a very indeterminate age in this production, and we couldn't quite figure out, probably based on the fact that it was not a very good recording. Is this an old person or is this a young person dressed like an old person?
Well, we did determine that he was a young person.
Right. Well, that kind of leads me into my next thing. But is there anything else you want to talk about that was good from this production before I talk about the sort of post-watching research that I ended up doing that softened my heart towards this Pinocchio?
I think it is valuable for us to watch things like this and do the amount of research that we do, because even though we joke about not doing any research, we do some research, and sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
To be reminded of the fact that it is easy to be shitty on the internet.
Yes.
And here we are on the internet being I think we're being a little shitty about this.
Yes.
We didn't enjoy it, and we are telling people we didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we're being very blunt about the fact that it doesn't work, and the music is not very good, and the singing is not all great, and
the script itself is not very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work in it, but had we done no research, it would be very easy to just sit here and go, here's all the ways that it's not good. We're on the internet. But we did do some research.
Yeah.
And I immediately felt bad.
I felt real bad
about what I knew I was going to say about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to lie, it's not very good.
Yeah.
However,
yes,
as you were saying, I think our hearts were softened.
Yeah.
And I came out of it finding it a very enjoyable experience because of what you're going to talk about.
So I was just curious if any of these people, what their careers went on to be. So if you remember, this is the Prince Street Players, founded by a guy named Jim Eiler, who ran it, as far as we can tell, for many years. So I was just curious, whatever happened to him? I did find something. I found his obituary.
Which is a bummer.
This is from
This did air
2010.
almost 60 years ago.
Yeah. So if you remember again, Jim Eiler played the coachman, and there was a guy named David Lyle, who I was also kind of interested in whatever might have happened to him, who played Geppetto. Eiler Jim, 83. Actor, writer, director, and founder of the Prince Street Players Limited, died on July 20th, this is 2010, at his home in Boca Raton, Florida. David Lyle, his life partner of 45 years, announced his death. Mr. Eiler created Broadway-style musicals for young audiences. CBS TV produced 4 national Emmy-winning specials of his work starting in 1965, which are considered some of the finest ever created for children. Critics praised his songs and clever updating of the classic fairy tales Pinocchio, Jack and the Beanstalk, Emperor's New Clothes, and Aladdin, calling them sparkling and humorous, noting adults enjoyed them as much or more than the children. He will be remembered by the many actors and directors who got their first break performing in a Prince Street show. All 11 of his scripts and scores are now leased throughout the world by Music Theatre International. His legacy is a joyous one of shared love and laughter through his words and music. This intrigued me.
Broke my heart.
It truly, the story of this production of Pinocchio is a love story for the ages. I did find David Lyle's Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
He is just an old guy with a Facebook. He still runs the Prince Street Players.
He seems lovely. Like, genuinely, they seem lovely.
I found beautiful pictures of them from their relationship. Like I said, on this guy's Facebook, because he's just a guy. Like, he's not a celebrity. He's just a guy living his best life as, like, an older gay gentleman in Florida, having unfortunately lost his partner of 45 years some years ago. If he's listening, reach out. He seems so lovely, and we can't make fun of this because I just feel like I know him and that, like, he's my grandpa.
Yeah.
You know, it took the heart out of me. I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I got a list of things that don't work.
All right.
I'm not going to let it stop me from...
I'm going to let it stop me, so you go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Pinocchio does not work in this.
Yeah.
John Joy's Pinocchio, he just looks like a middle-aged dude jumping around, acting like a little kid. Like, that's the problem. He's not owning it, and he's not acting like a middle-aged guy playing Pinocchio. He's acting like a little kid running around. Oh, my goodness. And the performance does not work. This thing is low rent. We only hear about stuff that happens that isn't on the main street of the town. So, like, all the stuff that happens with Pinocchio at school, we hear all about it.
Yeah, I told you it was like Greek theater. Like,
yes.
Stuff happens off stage, and then people come running on stage to say what happened off stage.
But it happens the entire time.
Yeah.
All I wrote down, I've probably blocked it. I can't even remember exactly what it looked like. Donkey Pinocchio is a pickle, a sad, sad pickle.
I do remember. I wrote down donkey head, and I said I bet that head was used in some community theater production of Midsummer Night's Dream. Because
Yes.
it's just like a big head that they clap on his body.
Yep.
Yeah.
The music is not great. I feel bad saying it. And it's also trying to make up for some problems in the production, I think. So the fox and the cat are in it.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about them very much.
As characters.
Yeah, like Honest John and the cat from the Disney version. The fox and the cat are in the story, and they have characters, and they both talk, and they manipulate Pinocchio many different ways, and they end up being kind of, I mean, obviously, other than the giant fish that swallows them at the end, like, they're kind of the prime antagonists.
Yeah.
They have an entire song about how they are, in fact, a fox and a cat.
Yeah.
And I believe the song is only there to make up for the fact that they do not look like in any way a fox or a cat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, this piece of work would be much more charming if we were watching it performed by 6th graders, like in a community center basement. I think we would think it's much more charming than seeing it performed by adults on television.
Yeah. This is the last thing, because the Italy thing is just going to keep coming up. Nothing musically in the show has anything to do with Italy. Like, nothing sounds Italian. It's not trying. We've talked about this in the past. Like, the songs just sound like Broadway songs, like any rando Broadway song.
Yeah, Broadway style.
Broadway style.
Yeah.
Yes. It is frustrating that it is such an Italian story, and it seems that not a lot of thought was given to make it evoke Italy. Bummed me out. That's all I have for that one.
Yep.
Before we get to the next big one we're going to talk about, let's talk about the half one.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't watch it.
We started watching it, and then we stopped. We vetoed it. This was Pinocchio in Outer Space, 1965, animated movie. And we stopped watching it because it's a sequel.
Yeah.
There's literally an entire thing. It is basically the story of Pinocchio, but done in a sci-fi context. So he is Pinocchio on Earth, but then instead of Jiminy Cricket, there's an alien who becomes his friend, and they have to go into space to fight Space Monstro.
Yeah,
I can't remember what the name of the space whale is called.
But it was very clear.
Astro.
It was very clear that they were saying, Pinocchio, after your adventures, now you're going to go to space. It wasn't like Pinocchio set in space from the beginning, and I went, aha, a loophole. We don't have to watch this. This is a sequel.
Yeah, 'cause there's literally a whole thing. We thought it was going to be something we would watch, then we started watching it, and the whole thing at the beginning is this prologue where, like, the blue fairy is talking to someone and saying, like, "Oh, yes, he went through all his adventures and he became a real boy, but then he was naughty again and stopped listening to his father, so he turned back to wood."
Yep.
And that's our way to get back to Pinocchio being a puppet.
Yep.
I know you want to talk about the next one.
I mean, I don't want to talk about the next one. Here's what I'm going to say. Let's talk about the next one. I don't want to spend more than 30 seconds on this.
Okay.
Okay, go.
It's simply called Pinocchio. Came out in 1971. The Erotic Adventures of Pinocchio is not the official title. It just seems to have been dubbed that later. Directed by Corey Allen from a screenplay by Allen and Chris Warfield. The tagline for the movie is, "It's not his nose that grows."
Oh, God.
Starring Alex Roman as Pinocchio, Monica Gale as Geppetta, the young woman who created him, and Deanne Thorne as the fairy godmother.
We had a sort of intense conversation about whether this would, in fact, be the first hardcore pornography we watched for the podcast. It was not.
It was not.
It was not hardcore pornography. It was softcore pornography.
This is 70s X-rated. I think technically it's R-rated. I think they did make cuts to get it an R.
Yeah.
This is just a classic, silly grindhouse movie with lots of boobs in it.
Yeah.
This is for...
There's no dong.
No.
No one hangs dong.
Yeah, there's lots of implied dong.
Yeah.
Because, of course, it's not his
It's not
nose
his
that
nose
grows.
that grows.
Even though the poster... Like, people can look at the show art for it. Like, his nose is big in the poster, even though that's literally never a thing that happens in the movie.
Yeah.
But he is basically a sex machine, and the fairy godmother brings him to life because Geppetta makes him because she's lonely.
For a
and
sex doll.
She makes him because she's lonely and wants to be loved, but also...
Sex
he needs
doll.
to have sex with her.
Yep.
So the fairy godmother brings him to life and says, "Go have sex with Geppetta," but he keeps getting waylaid and instead has sex with all these other people at like a brothel and ends up doing shows.
Yeah.
And the more he doesn't do the thing the fairy godmother told him to do, the more his penis grows.
Yeah.
And so they have to
They do like a sex contest at one point.
Yeah, it literally it's like 10 feet long at some point, and it's like he's walking it around in a wheelbarrow
Yeah.
with like a blanket over it.
Like, it's dirty and boring. I
Yes.
truly stopped paying attention because it was not sexy and it was boring.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Like it's really not fun. Like my one question, and then we can move on, is who is this movie for?
I don't know.
Like this movie is for teenage boys in 1971 who wanted to see boobs and managed to sneak away and go to a grindhouse theater.
Yeah.
That's who it's for.
It's not for me.
And also I will say no notes, it's perfect.
Great. If that's the audience you're trying to satisfy, absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. Can we move on, please?
Yes, absolutely. So in 1972, there was an animated movie that was released in Italy called The Adventures of Pinocchio. It was then released in English with a dub in 1978. So that's the version we're talking about. It's weird to go from the Erotic Adventures of Pinocchio to this, which is seeming to be the Italians planting their flag and going, "We are going to make the real Pinocchio."
This is the most classic looking Pinocchio.
Yeah.
This is what my wooden Pinocchio doll from Italy looked like.
Right.
Yes.
And it does, I would actually say it probably has more of the book in it than any other version.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a good way. Can I just be totally honest?
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. First, it was written and directed by Giuliano Cenci. And the other thing I will say is I don't think any of it works. I don't think it's good. I don't think it works. I think the only thing that works is it can say it is the most faithful adaptation of Pinocchio.
Yeah.
In that it contains the most stuff from the book.
Yeah. Like he does murder the cricket, which we were kind of looking for.
Mm-hmm.
He does burn his feet off, which again is sort of one of the more grotesque incidents that I kind of look for.
Never bites the cat's hand off.
Doesn't bite the cat's hand off. We were kind of, after he murdered the cricket and burned his feet, we kind of were holding out hope for biting the cat's hand off, and we were like, if he doesn't do it in this one, we're not gonna see one where he does it.
Yeah.
Which we didn't.
I just have a list of things that don't work in this one. Can we run through it?
Sure, yeah, go.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, the animation I think is bad. It is deeply unsettling. I was talking before about the rotoscope stuff.
Yeah.
With the Blue Fairy and the Disney version. This is a ton of rotoscoping, and this movie like exists, I would say, with one foot in the uncanny valley the entire time.
Was this one of the ones that they kind of
fidgeting?
they got ants in the pants, like
Yes.
you kind of can't sit still.
I would honestly say I think you were talking more about this one than Bucatini
Fair
before.
enough.
Yeah. Literally the entire movie, every single character is constantly shuffling back and forth because they couldn't just animate anyone standing still. Like everything had to be moving all the time, but nothing's moving in a way that anything moves. It's very strange, and I hate looking at it. In terms of character design, Pinocchio looks great. Every time he moves, I hate it. There's a shot they clearly recycled through the movie where he's running through the woods, and it's like it just looks like a kid running because it's from a distance, and because the animation is rotoscoped, it looks too real, and it doesn't look like a cartoony Pinocchio. It looks like a kid.
Yeah.
And it's unsettling.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you've also got Candlewick, who looks like a 50-year-old man.
Yeah, yes. Have you ever seen a really bad tattoo of a baby?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it like there's shadows in places where shadows shouldn't be, like on a baby's face, and it looks like an old man.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this looked like.
Yeah. It's like that crossed with Alfred E. Newman.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
But like just a very, very wrinkled face that
Yes.
was really bad. I want to talk again about how it's so faithful. My opinion is that being faithful isn't good when the thing you're adapting doesn't make dramatic sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in the book that doesn't actually make dramatic sense. Like, I think we said the thing before about how he goes to the puppet show and all the puppets go, "Oh, it's Pinocchio, it's Pinocchio." Like, it doesn't actually make any sense that the puppets know him.
Yeah.
So if you're going to portray that in a movie, it's going to be a head scratcher unless you come up with a dramatic reason for why the other puppets know his name.
Yep.
Or have them not know his name. That's also fine.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it, you need it to make sense. They don't make it make sense. They just do it because it's the thing from the book. And I think the movie's full of stuff like that.
Yeah. I agree.
Then there's the conceit of the book. Because the entire time the movie is going on, they're showing you, quote, pages from the book.
Oh yeah, we don't like this.
And
we don't care for this, I feel like.
But this goes so much further than the thing we normally talk about, where the movie opens with the book and it ends with the book closing. This does that, but then throughout the movie, there will be entire sections where the filmmakers will go, the narrator will say, and then Pinocchio did this, and then Pinocchio did this. And it's showing you chapters that happen in the book.
Yeah.
But just like still pictures of it.
Yeah, it does kind of do this sort of similar Greek theater thing where it's like all this stuff happens off screen and they're clearly just trying to like boom, boom, boom. Let's get through the whole plot of the book. It's like, you don't have to do that. Let's just pick some incidents. You don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
And I literally think it was like they couldn't figure out how to get Pinocchio out of the way. Because I think one of them is like, and then Pinocchio escaped the whale. It's like, we would have loved to see that.
Yeah.
That's like an action scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of the peak moment of the story. Okay, sure.
Yeah. All the best action happens off screen, and I hate it. And then just beyond that, the tone, I think, is completely wrong. Like, the plot is there, but while the book is absurd, this movie is so serious and so intense, and the music is so intense, it just takes it way too seriously.
Yeah.
Like, there's the scene where Pinocchio first finds the blue fairy, but before she can take him into her home, he's captured by the cat and the fox, and they hang him from a tree to steal his gold coins that he has.
Yeah.
And the animation of Pinocchio swinging from the tree is awful.
Truly unpleasant.
It is awful to look at because, again, it's rotoscope, so it has like real weight to it. It looks like just a dead body swinging back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say that tonally, that doesn't actually match anything that I think Collodi was doing in the original novel. So I don't think any of this worked. I'm so sorry.
I would love to talk about Sandy Duncan.
Let's please.
This was the first one that we watched that I looked at it and went, this is a movie star.
Yeah.
There's a movie star in this.
Are you talking about Sandy Duncan?
No, I'm talking about Danny Kaye.
Yes.
We'll get back into what this is in a second, but like his sort of opening song, like his Geppetto's I Wish song was
talking to myself.
Striking in how good he is as an actor, like as a dramatic actor. And I know that's really silly. I don't say this lightly.
Mm-hmm.
It was Michael Caine in A Muppet Christmas Carol level of like doing really good acting and taking it seriously and playing it straight in a movie. Now, it wasn't consistent throughout, I would say, but like that opening song, I was like, I feel like we're heading into something kind of special here.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm ahead of myself. What is it that we're talking about?
We are talking about the 1976 TV movie musical simply titled Pinocchio. It was directed by Sid Smith, choreographed by Ron Field, music by Billy Barnes. It is a musical. There's a ton of songs in it. Sandy Duncan plays Pinocchio. Danny Kaye plays Geppetto. But more importantly, they also play the leaders of the acting troupe that is performing this show of Pinocchio.
There is a framing device that works. I'm going to say works. Makes it work better than it would have worked without the framing device, because without the framing device, you just have Sandy Duncan, a young lady, playing this puppet.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the whole story, the whole special opens before the show. Danny Kaye is the leader of the troupe, and Sandy Duncan is his daughter, and she's saying, Papa, I'll do this show with you, but after the show I'm leaving. I'm going to some city, and I want to go do my own thing. And he's like, no, you got to stay with the show. Here, let's do the show together, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
And after the show is done, he then says, like, because the show is obviously about learning to love your kid. And when the show is done, he says, obvious, like, go.
Yeah.
Go with God.
Yes.
And so that is the framing device.
Yes.
So then the show starts, and we get Danny Kaye now as Geppetto
Yes.
doing, again, talking to myself, which he sells
Yeah.
beautifully.
Beautifully.
So that is the special.
Yep.
So it is a big, I would actually say, when I say Broadway style,
Yeah.
I actually mean like Broadway style.
Broadway style.
Like real Broadway style. Like they had they had money to put at this, and they have a cast, and they have sets and big dance numbers. And it's a heck of a thing.
Yeah, so a couple things I liked about this. As I say, I did like Danny Kaye's performance. I liked Sandy Duncan's performance
She's
a lot.
great.
She was really great, and I'm kind of surprised we didn't have... this is the only version where a young woman plays Pinocchio.
In live action, yeah.
In live action.
Like I think some of the voices of older ones were
Maybe.
were grown women.
Well, yeah. But...
Yeah.
Sandy Duncan, of course, also famous for playing Peter Pan.
Mhm.
So, she sort of has made a career out of this.
To your point, it is surprising that Pinocchio hasn't gotten the Peter Pan treatment more often.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that because Peter Pan is very frequently played by a young too old woman.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on the Mary Martin version,
Right.
that film version. She's not so young in that.
Right. And the other thing that I just want to call out really specifically, we kind of mentioned this before. It seems to be that the thing that we responded to in a Pinocchio is the realism of what it's like to live with a toddler. There is a song in this called What's That? It is clearly written by someone who either has a toddler or remembers what it was like, because it's just Pinocchio like waking up into a plane of existence, right? From being wood to being alive, and just pointing at things and going, what's that? What's that? What's that? In song. And at one point, as Geppetto is trying to answer the questions, what's that? What's that? What's that? Pinocchio just sings, can't talk, I have to walk about. And I was like, that's a toddler. That's what it's like. Yep. They ask a question and you try to answer them and they're like, nope, can't talk right now. I gotta go. And I just found that just so charming. I really liked that song. Those were the things that stuck out to me as things that I liked very much.
Yeah,
what else do you have?
Yeah, Sandy Duncan and Danny Kaye are great. Like, the writing may not be amazing, the concept may not be amazing, but Danny Kaye and Sandy Duncan are fun and compelling.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that's most important. And Danny Kaye, as you say, like, goddamn movie star.
Yes.
You know what this reminded me of? This reminded me of The Stingiest Man in Town that we just covered. The songs are good and they are fun. And oftentimes I see the rhyme coming.
Yeah.
You know, I see the rhyme coming a mile away.
Oh, yeah, we were shouting out rhymes.
Yeah.
Or I was.
But, like, I didn't have a problem with it because the songs are fun.
Yeah.
That's all I want. There's the song I Want to Go Home.
Oh, that's when they were in the whale, right?
That's when they're in the whale and they're both crying.
Yeah, that was
like,
very funny.
Intensely crying while they're singing. And it's really, really funny. And the production is good. It's a big damn musical. Like, I think of the Pleasure Island sequence. Like,
big dance break.
Yeah, like the two big dance breaks that I remember is Pleasure Island. There's the giant dance break with
huge
all of
dance
the
break.
quote boys.
Yeah.
They are all
They're
men.
all men.
But they're all like Broadway dancers.
Yeah.
And so it works really well. The other one is, I think my favorite song in it is Look at Me Now. Do you remember? Look at Me Now. It's Danny Kaye doing his Geppetto, like, hey, life is great. But I got a kid. Everything's really good.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know how bad things are yet.
Right.
But Danny Kaye, by the way, like, he is great, but he is doing like a Super Mario level Italian accent.
Yeah,
like,
well,
it is very intense.
I was going to come to things I didn't like in a minute. I thought we were still talking about stuff we enjoyed.
Well, I am.
Oh, okay.
I thought his accent was amazing.
Oh, okay, fair
I thought
enough.
he sold it. I thought it was beautiful and consistent, and I thought it was. I loved his accent in it. But I think that might be my favorite thing. And it's a big damn musical, and it's really fun. But yeah, let's talk about some stuff that doesn't work.
I mean, I think the thing that didn't work super great for me, and I don't know if this was even a problem because there was sort of it was stylized in a way, but like, so the boys, like the town boys, are all played by men, like grown men. But what it has the effect of is making Sandy Duncan, she doesn't look like a puppet. She looks like a girl pretending to be a boy because she's this cute young woman dressed in a puppet outfit and all the boys are like men. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's a bad thing. It just, that's how it struck me.
I think this is the thing we were saying before about the framing device.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the framing device, I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah.
But I felt like at any moment you could just say they're acting this way because they're supposed to act this way because they're putting on a show.
That's fair enough. No, that's fair enough. And
I'm not saying that's why it should have worked for you,
no.
but that's what kind of made it work for me.
Here's something that I don't think even the framing device can overcome. Danny Kaye touches Sandy Duncan's butt an uncomfortable number of times.
Yeah, it's not great.
So many times. Like in the way you pat your kid on the butt, but like she's wearing like really tight like shorts and tights. The framing device does not sufficiently distance me from watching Danny Kaye touch Sandy Duncan's butt a lot of times.
Yeah, it's the first wrong turn that it makes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we were into it. We were shocked at how into it we were.
Yeah.
By the way, we haven't really said this so far, but like a lot of the ones we've talked about so far are all on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like just go watch them.
Yeah.
But this one, we loved it right from the beginning and we're like really into it. And then there's that moment happens where Geppetto is slapping Pinocchio on the butt, as you say, the way a parent does with a kid. But like, don't slap Sandy Duncan's ass, Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
And then the problem was, even though it's not like he had his hands all over her the entire time, but it made us hyper aware of every single time he touched her body.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
always
right.
like, where are his hands going to go?
Yeah, we were
And
watching his hands real closely because we were uncomfortable.
that doesn't work.
Didn't work.
The whole thing's kind of low rent. Do you remember the underwater effects when she gets swallowed by the whale?
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. And it happens right after, we didn't even mention him. We have a new friend of the pod.
Oh, yeah.
We're inducting a new friend of the pod. So this is Clive Revel. He plays the coachman in this version.
Uh-huh.
He was in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes in 1970, The Little Prince in 1974, Robin Hood Men in Tights, 1993, and Dracula Dead and Loving It, 1995. This marks his 5th appearance on this show. Clive Revel, come on down. You are a friend of the pod.
Good for him.
And he's great in it. And immediately following his scenes, we get the underwater special effects. And it is 1976 TV special effects. And it's really bad.
Yeah.
Finally, it apes a lot of the Disney version, which I think is a problem. But it's not like it's a big problem because we kind of talked about the fact that like the Disney version has become Pinocchio to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the one moment that really got me is after they get out of the whale, Pinocchio is apparently dead.
Yeah.
And then comes back to life later and is real. That's just the Disney version.
Yeah.
There's no way you got that from anything other than the Disney version. It definitely didn't come from your own, either your own imagination or the original book.
Yeah.
And that bums me out.
Yeah. What can you do?
Bottom line though, it's a delight.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that was slightly less of a delight.
Not a delight.
Not a delight.
In 1978, BBC did a miniseries. It was directed by Barry Letts, who worked on like hundreds of episodes of Doctor Who, the teleplay by Alec Drysdale, and starring Rosemary Miller as the voice of Pinocchio,
Uh-huh.
because it is a live-action show, but Pinocchio is a puppet.
A puppet.
So I'm going to challenge you. What are some things you think work in this? Do you have nothing?
I liked how, because it is British, they were all saying Pinocchio.
That was cute.
I thought it was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to read through my notes, but I don't know that those are going to fall into the category of what did you like? Did you like anything about this one?
I have a couple of things.
All
Okay.
right. Let's hear some positive news.
I thought the performances in a vacuum were pretty good. Okay. I think a lot of the performers were pretty funny. Roy McCready as the fox in particular ended up being very funny. His makeup, I don't know. I didn't like it, but his performance was good. Derek Smith as Geppetto had that crazy red wig. Like I kind of I liked his energy.
There's a lot of wig work amongst Geppettos.
Yeah.
That seems to be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember if in the book it's specifically called out that Geppetto wears a wig, but it must be, because as I say, there's a lot of wig plot amongst Geppettos.
Something else that worked in this is the talking cricket. It is just a really, really crappy puppet that doesn't really move, but the voice, he's a shit talking cricket and he tells it how it is. And he does get a hammer thrown at him at one point.
That's good.
And the tone, I think the tone actually gets closer to the book than a lot of these do.
Yeah.
Because it is really absurd.
Yeah.
It's and as of this point where we were, it was the most absurd thing we'd seen.
Yes, that is true. And like, I think the BBC can do an adaptation. And I think if you're going to do something kind of absurd, I think someone that's directed 100 episodes of Doctor Who is a good person to helmet.
Yeah.
Like, that works for me.
Mhm.
I think just a lot of the failure was around the actual production and how much money they had to spend on making it not look actively unpleasant. because here are my first 3 notes.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, I hate it.
Uh-huh.
Why is it horror movie music? And I hate this.
And what was that all in reference to?
I don't really know, but I think it's just like the look of him.
Yeah, it's Pinocchio.
Yeah, it's Pinocchio.
And I think it's a problem when the biggest problem with your production of Pinocchio is Pinocchio.
Yeah.
This puppet is horrible to look at.
It's awful.
It's really horrible. Like, okay, so here are some things.
Like I'm looking at an image of it right now that I think you managed to find a pretty flattering shot, because this doesn't look that bad. Like, it looks like a puppet, but like the way that it was animated and moved, and I did not like it.
Well, didn't move. That was one of the big problems with it.
Yeah.
Is that so anyone can find a picture if you just look up 1978 Pinocchio, or look at the image that we put on social media for it. It's the character has a very, very wide mouth.
Yeah.
Like half the character's head is mouth. And when you are going to go to such lengths to design a puppet that has such a big mouth, you would hope that the mouth would move. The problem is the mouth doesn't really move the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So the puppet talks a lot, but never moves to match the talking, but does like a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it never moves and you just kind of get used to the fact that the mouth is never moving. It's like every now and then the gums flap up and down. That's it. Every now and then it happens. So they clearly had the ability to do some kind of articulation, but certainly not enough that made it pleasant to watch.
Yeah.
But also it's the shark eyes for me that I really hate. Like it has these big black eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Yeah.
It's
there you go. It is a doll.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is horrible to look at. There is a scene where Pinocchio is laughing. I wrote down that Pinocchio laughing is a fucking nightmare.
I think maybe that's when I wrote I hate this.
Yeah, because he's doing this real high-pitched, like...
Yep, no, that's when I wrote I hate this, because it was like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no, maybe this is another thing I wrote down. There's literally a point where Pinocchio just goes, "What am I?" But it's this horrible, horrible screech. It's awful. But my big question is, like, who thought this puppet was okay?
It's not a good
Did
puppet.
they think it was okay? The dead eyes, the mouth that barely moves. It's awful. And I remember sitting there going, like, man, I really wish Pinocchio would get, like, the Henson treatment, like the full Jim Henson Creature Shop treatment, because that would be fun to see people who really are good at making puppets do that. I didn't know, and like I know I'm spoiling this, but we'll talk about it more in a few minutes. Like the Jonathan Taylor Thomas one, I didn't know that the Henson Creature Shop did that Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So I was delighted when I found that out, because I specifically wanted it after watching this one.
Yeah.
This is just, it's a mess.
Yeah. The makeup on the animals is also
Yeah.
truly disturbing and distressing. Like, I wrote down, what's going on with the fox's nose, and the animals are a pickle.
I feel like with the fox, this is the one where they took, I almost think that they really took a fox skin
Yeah.
and took the head off and used that to make the mask.
Yeah.
Because it's far too small. Like the
Yeah, it's
snout and
too
the nose
small.
are too small.
Yeah.
So they paint the mouth underneath it.
Yeah.
So it just looks like someone is wearing a dead fox on their face.
Yeah. Yes.
So it looks
Correct.
like a crazy person
Yes, correct.
who
That is
goes
what it looks
around
like.
wearing a dead fox
Yeah.
on their face.
It was also quite long.
Oh, that's another problem. Yeah. Like it is slow
It's a mini series.
and long.
Yeah. I mean, was it 4? Like
4 half-hour episodes.
4 half-hour episodes. Okay. So it felt longer than it was.
Yeah, I mean, it has a terrible energy to it.
Yeah.
It's weird. The tone was good, but the energy wasn't there, so the tone just kind of was not used to its full effect.
That's an interesting segue, because I think the next one did have an energy that we appreciated.
Loved.
Loved even. So this is Fairy Tale Theater.
Episode 3 of Season 3
Mhm.
aired May 14th, 1984.
Did you watch Fairy Tale Theater?
Yeah.
I loved some Fairy Tale Theater. I
Mhm.
remember the Frog Prince with Robin Williams. I remember that very,
Mhm.
very clearly. I think there was like a Three Bears one that I remembered, something with bears. So for those of you that aren't older millennials like ourselves, Fairy Tale Theater was a live action television show hosted by Shelley Duvall. They were like hour-long episodes, and each one, like the cast was like star-studded. So they would get like Robin Williams to play the frog in the Frog Prince. This is Pee Wee Herman himself, Paul Rubens playing Pinocchio, which is inspired casting, truly inspired
It's
casting.
perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Especially in 1984.
Yeah. As we were watching it, this was one of those ones where I was like, I've seen this before. Yeah, absolutely. Somewhere in my brain remembers that I've seen this before, because I remember the Blue Fairy very specifically. I remember like that image of like this quite robust, buxom blue woman who's Lainey Kazan. This is the sexiest Blue Fairy, I think, that we've encountered, which is saying a lot because some of them are pretty sexy. But
Yeah.
she was randy, like not just sexy. Like she was horny. She was horny for Geppetto.
That's the thing. Like you say sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that are sexy. She's sexual.
Yes.
Like she has a sexual energy
she has a
about
sexuality,
her.
yes.
In that she wants to fuck Geppetto.
Really, yes, a lot.
Who is Carl Reiner? Like, good for her for knowing what she wants.
Yeah, like she could do better than Geppetto because she looks great.
Yeah.
Lainie
Kazan, by the way, she's that perfect kind of Jewish actor that can play anything.
Yeah, she's the mom in My Big Fat Greek Wedding,
Yeah,
if you're wondering why the name sounds familiar.
And she's doing this like amazing, intense Italian accent. It's like, here's the thing. If you want someone to be a big, buxom Mediterranean lady,
yeah,
Lainie Kazan was someone you could get and you could rely on.
Yeah, it's just so funny that I never, like, she does such a great job in My Big Fat Greek Wedding that I never thought to question that she wasn't Greek. Like, I never thought, Lainie Kazan, that's a good Greek name. Like, she's just like a Jewish lady from New York.
I fucking love Lainie Kazan. She's so good.
She's so good in this.
But yeah, Paul Rubens is great in that. Like, let's talk about stuff that works because the cast is great. Paul Rubens is perfect casting. Lainie Kazan's great. Carl Reiner is such a good Geppetto.
He's very good.
I love that. My favorite piece of casting in the whole thing, though, is the narrator, because the narrator is Don Novello, who played a character called Father Guido Sarducci back in like the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
So he's doing Father Guido Sarducci, like narrating it.
Uh-huh.
Like he's there because he was like on SNL and friends with Gilda Radner and stuff like that. Like that's why he's there.
Yeah.
Hearing his voice, like I spotted him immediately,
yeah.
which was great.
And I don't know the name of the actor, but there is like a friend of Geppetto's that was like in The Godfather.
Yeah.
Like a really like I don't remember his name.
I don't have his
but
name
he's
written
like
down.
one of those like, hey, you need a guy to play like a mobster Italian guy. Here he is. Oh, he was the baker in The Godfather.
Yeah.
Like the one that wants his daughter to marry Enzo the baker, and Don Corleone does him a favor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like good casting.
Yeah.
I thought
James Coburn, by the way,
mm-hmm.
as the gypsy, who was like the villain in it. Not super cool that he's just the gypsy, but his performance is fun. Yeah.
Good energy. And I think if this proves anything, it's that Pinocchio, you don't need a 3-hour miniseries. Like, you can tell this story in a quick, energetic hour.
Yeah. The pacing and the humor are the best parts of this.
Yeah.
And that was always that was the great thing about fairy tale theater is it was a comedy that was totally appropriate for kids, but also directed at adults.
Yeah.
Like it was aiming to be an entertaining television show.
Yeah.
And because they hit it, all the episodes are entertaining TV episodes.
Yes.
It's a real fun show. I do think there's a few things that don't work.
Okay, go for it.
As fun as I thought it was to watch Lainie Kazan be so sexual as the Blue Fairy, I don't know that it 100% works.
I wrote down, what is she doing to her wand at one point?
She's jerking off her wand at one point. It's not amazing to watch.
This was more erotic than the erotic adventures of Pinocchio.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I want to talk about Mario and Vince. There's a puppet show. And in the puppet show, there are two full-grown men dressed as a fox and a cat. Mm-hmm. So that's because they make a lot of changes to it. So the fox and the cat are introduced as these puppets, but really they're just these two dudes dressed up, and it's Mario and Vince. Mm-hmm. Mario is Jim Belushi, and Vince is Michael Richards. Mm-hmm. Just to be clear, 1984 Michael Richards. Yeah. This is years before Seinfeld started.
Yeah.
So little scrawny Michael Richards. I don't think Mario and Vince work in this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I do not care for these characters.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't know why you would take something as fantastical as like it's a talking fox and a talking cat and just say they're just these two dudes now.
They were just trying to get like every Italian stereotype they could possibly cram into an hour-long TV special.
Yeah, I didn't care about that. But also, it's just the Disney version again.
Yeah.
Like the Blue Fairy gave him life.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. Bums me out.
All right, let's keep going. We are halfway through. Let's keep moving. JTT,
let's hit the 90s.
Let's do it.
Who better to take us into the 90s? Did you ever see it?
No.
I never saw it either. Like, I figured you would have seen it because you had little brothers at that time.
I don't think my brothers cared about Jonathan Taylor Thomas or Pinocchio.
Like, I remember this being a thing. Anyway, it was directed by Steve Barron from a screenplay by Steve Barron, Sherry Mills, Tom Benedict, and Barry Berman. Animatronics by Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
There it is.
So here's the thing about Steve Barron at this point. We've talked about him already. He did the Eddie Izzard Treasure Island.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing he did that was important to my childhood is he did the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1990, he already had experience working with Jim Henson and the Creature Shop and doing movies for kids that were good, because that movie is good.
Yep.
Fight me.
I have no intention to fight you.
And probably no one will.
Yeah.
Apparently, this had been a passion project for him. That, like, even before Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he had been talking to Jim Henson saying, like, we should do a Pinocchio. You should do the puppet because you would do a great job.
Yeah.
And it spent years being developed. Apparently, they took it to Disney, and Disney was like, no. And they finally were able to get it made, unfortunately, after Jim Henson had passed away. But it is a full Jim Henson Creature Shop Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So they use, I'll just say this. I think the effects work.
Mhm.
I think the puppet looks amazing.
Yeah. That was on my list of good things
Yeah.
to talk about.
We can talk more about it in a second. I just will also mention Martin Landau plays Geppetto.
Mhm.
Genevieve Bujold plays Leona,
Mhm.
who is important to the story. 'Cause
Somewhat.
They tell their own version of the story with this one.
Yeah, why not?
Udo Kier is Lorenzini, who they've kind of combined all of, like, the Coachman and Mangafuko. They've kind of combined them all into one character in this one. And then we also have Felinet and Volpe.
Yep.
BB Newirth and Rob Schneider.
Yep.
I think this is Rob Schneider's first official appearance
Yeah.
on the show, maybe.
Maybe.
And there is a talking cricket named Pepe.
Yep.
What do you think works in this production?
Pinocchio's real cute.
Yeah.
I like the look of him. The way that he turned into Jonathan Taylor Thomas at the end, I thought was not successful, but I did like the look of the puppet.
But then suddenly Jonathan Taylor Thomas was on screen, and so of course we were fine with it.
You know, I was not a JTT fan, right? Like, you know that I had 400 pictures of Noah Wyle taped to the back of my door.
I mean, not being an active JTT fan doesn't mean you didn't think he was cute.
I didn't think he was cute. He's not my type. It was not my thing.
All right.
So we're distracted me.
You were talking about how good the puppet was.
Yeah, the puppet was good. I thought the puppet was real cute and not disturbing in any way.
No. This movie just exemplifies everything that I love about Jim Henson, about the Creature Shop, is they use every trick in the book. So it's not just a puppet. Like, it's sometimes a full puppet, sometimes it's a full animatronic, sometimes it's just a hand puppet, sometimes they're on blue screen, sometimes he's stop motion when he's walking around in the background. They literally use every trick they can to convince you that this is a walking, talking puppet. They're just inventive in a way that I find really fun.
Yeah. I do like a middle-aged love story.
Yes, you do.
I believe I'm on record as having stated this in the past. I think this was one of the only ones that they had this, but I did like the love story that they added between Geppetto and Leona.
Well, I mean, as we said, there is a version where the Blue Fairy literally bones down with Geppetto.
Right, but I'm talking more about emotion than raw sex.
I thought it was very emotional.
Yeah. So I liked that. I thought it was a fun thing to add to the story to kind of make it their own.
Are you going to do you want to describe to people what it is?
Yeah, they were like young sweethearts, and at one point he carved their initials like in a heart in a tree, and that's the tree that he used to make Pinocchio. So Pinocchio has this like heart carved in him, and they're like friends. Like, we can see them as friends and neighbors, but like we find out that Leona married his brother.
Well, they were never sweethearts.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. He never told her how he felt.
I see.
So, like, there finally is the thing where he's sailing away into the ocean to get swallowed by a whale. He doesn't know, but he's sailing away to get swallowed by a whale, and she's standing on the seashore, and he says, "You never should have married my brother. I was in love with you." And she's like, "You waited this long to tell me?"
Gotcha.
Like, she had no idea about any of it.
I see.
Yeah.
I misunderstood that a little bit, but I think it's still fine.
Yeah, but he was in love with her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And this was just like a tiny thing that didn't work for me. Like, when he finds the log that happens to be the one that he carved the heart in when he was younger, he looks at it and goes like, huh. Like, I felt like he should be more impressed.
More amazed.
More amazed. But
Yeah.
he's not really that amazed when he finds that.
I mean, there's a couple of moments like that, and I don't know if this like leads into things we didn't really like. I don't know that stuff I didn't like. It was just notable. Is like there are definitely a couple of moments in this movie where it's like the thing that just happened should be more amazing to you.
Yeah.
Like there's the scene where Pinocchio goes to school, and the thing I wrote down was like it goes really fast from them being amazed he's a puppet to like suddenly they're making fun of him because he's a puppet. It's like, oh my God, you're a puppet. Let's make fun of you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the things I liked. Why don't you pick it up, and then we can talk some more.
Yeah, I was just going to say two things really quickly. I appreciated their intentions with this one because their intention was clearly, let's take plot elements that everybody knows and let's make them more action-packed. So there is a big focus on the movie on making it very action-packed. Lots of stuff happens. I'm not saying it was all successful, but I appreciate their intention. And the last thing I'll say that I didn't expect to like, because I kind of found out quickly that this turned into nightmare fuel for a lot of kids who saw it. When Lampwick turns into a donkey, they're on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's very tunnel scene in Willy Wonka.
It's
It's real nightmarish, so they all turn into donkeys on the roller coaster in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And there is a moment where Lampwick kind of transitions from boy to donkey, and there's that midway point where his like teeth are enormous, and I saw a lot of people going like, this scene scared the shit out of me and gave me nightmares for years. So I was expecting not to like it. I loved Lampwick's donkey face.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought it was hilarious looking. I was very happy about it.
Yeah. I would say that this is the first one that we've seen, certainly the first non-animated Pinocchio that looked like a real movie. Because it was a theatrically released movie.
Let's get into it.
There were just a couple funny things that I felt myself being taken out of it. There's the whole scene where, like, right at the beginning, Geppetto's like carved Pinocchio, and then he goes to take a bath, and there's this whole scene where like Pinocchio like wanders into the bathroom where he's taking a bath. Geppetto's taking a bath fully clothed, and so it really confused me and took me out of the movie trying to figure out how they were going to justify the fact that he was taking a bath fully clothed. Like, I don't understand, because then he had to like get up and he's like running around the town wearing his like sort of white wet bath garment, and it was incredibly strange. I assume Martin Landau didn't want to be naked in a children's movie Pinocchio.
I'm assuming none of them wanted him to be naked in a children's movie about Pinocchio.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, I think the movie is full of a lot of choices that are questionable.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in any movie, there's always going to be those choices you're forced to make, and someone is going to say, we shouldn't do that because that's not going to work. And then someone who's got an eye on the budget and the schedule says, we don't have time to figure something else out. No one will care.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
The problem was I feel like every single scene has something like that in it.
Yeah.
So I feel like most of the movie, unfortunately, doesn't work.
Yeah.
And like the thing you're talking about with like Geppetto's taking a bath in his clothes.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird. Like every scene has something like that.
Yeah. I don't remember what this note was about. Maybe you will remember, because it's my last note, so I assume it's something that happened at the end. I wrote down, don't emotionally manipulate me.
Oh, no, they just did a nice job. Like, I just feel like Martin Landau sold the whole, like, I love you.
Yeah,
to
no,
him.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
parts of it work.
Parts of it work.
But a lot of it doesn't. But then it's all immediately undercut. I know we are skipping to the end with this one, but
That's
like,
fine.
once Pinocchio has turned into JTT, he says to him, I'll need to carve a girl puppet for you.
Yeah, he does say that.
And I was like, dude, if Geppetto carves a girl puppet, it'll be your sister.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think that's what he says to Geppetto. Like, you should carve me a girl puppet.
Yeah.
Because now I like girls. Because
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Right.
Like, it'll be your sister.
Well, wink
That's
to the
not
audience
okay.
there. Yeah.
Lorenzini's plan makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, he wants Pinocchio to do his puppet show because, of course, he's a live puppet. So, of course, he would want him. But the puppet show involves fire and the death of puppets. So, like, presumably, it's so chaotic that he almost couldn't do a second show.
Right.
And so I wonder what his business plan is
Right.
to do one performance
the
and
whole thing
never
is,
be
like,
able to do another one.
His life's in danger, but like, is that okay? Yeah.
Also, Lorenzini is the sea monster. Oh, that's the thing. He's Mangiafuoco.
Right. He's also the sea monster.
And Stromboli and the sea. Well, Stromboli is Mangiafuoco and the coachman and the sea monster.
Yeah, because just to clarify something you said before, it's not that the roller coaster turns them into donkeys. It's that the roller coaster splashes them, forcing them to drink the magic water, and the magic water turns them into donkeys. Because at the end, what they do with Lorenzini is they push him into the magic water, thus turning him into the sea monster.
Well, yeah, he like starts to become grotesque and
Yes.
runs past them all and jumps into the ocean.
Right.
And they all presume he's dead now. We never have to worry about him again.
Right. He's the sea monster.
Yeah, it's and like you'd never know, except there is a line. I can't remember who says it. I think Pinocchio says it, where he says like, "That must be Lorenzini."
Yeah. Yes, he does say
It's
that.
completely useless.
Yeah.
Completely useless. It doesn't work. I felt really bad. I wanted to like this one more, and I loved the puppet work in it, but I think it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Geppetto.
I don't, but let's do it.
I want to talk about Geppetto The feature-length episode of The Wonderful World of Disney that aired in 2000, directed by Tom Moore from a teleplay by David I. Stern, with original songs by real goddamn big deal Stephen Schwartz.
Yep.
He's the real deal.
Yeah, they got people to come do this. They're like, you want to be in an original musical produced by Disney, written by Stephen Schwartz? And anyone would be like, yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it, of course, stars, because it aired on ABC in the year 2000, it starred ABC's Man of the Moment.
Yeah.
I feel like, based on, I can see the look on your face right now, so I feel like you're not going to like the next thing I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
I like Drew Carey in this. I liked Drew Carey a lot in the year 2000.
Uh-huh.
I didn't stop liking him. I just don't really watch him in much anymore because I don't watch The Price is Right. But like in the year 2000, it was like, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
That was funny.
And The Drew Carey Show,
Yeah.
and both of which were fantastic shows. I really liked Drew Carey. He may not be the best singer in the world.
He tried hard.
But he loves singing.
He tried very hard
Yeah.
to do a good job with singing. He did not always succeed. Just for total transparency, this is on YouTube. The version that we watched for 3/4 of it was a very bad rip and very difficult to see. We then found one that was better, but weren't willing to start again from the beginning. So part of this was watched basically not being able to see like the detail in anybody's faces or like color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't great. So like, for example,
Yes.
Pinocchio is played by a young actor named Seth Adkins,
Yes.
who is in full body makeup to make him look like he is made of wood. We didn't really get a good picture of that.
Yeah.
And couldn't really tell that he looked like wood
Yeah.
for a lot of it. Once we started watching the better quality one, oh man, he looks like wood.
Looks like wood.
Definitely looks like he's made out of wood. They
Yeah.
did a good job with his makeup.
Yeah.
But I feel like the thing we need to talk about at the beginning is, wait a second, Pinocchio is in it, but it's called Geppetto?
Yes. This is a movie about becoming a father.
Yes.
I don't know how you felt about that because I know that that is something that pushes your buttons in emotional ways.
I don't want to say it's the only one that made me cry, but it is the hardest I cried
Yeah.
at any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this was a good thing. I enjoyed being emotionally manipulated at the end of this.
yeah. You
Made me feel feelings that I like feeling.
You cried a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
I was not moved to tears by 2000's Geppetto.
You were kind of distanced by the production.
I was distanced by the production. I was distanced by the fact that we were watching a bad rip. Like it takes a lot to really get me into things.
But
I don't know.
I like the arc they were doing because the story they were trying to tell is Geppetto is this guy who has a toy store. I do appreciate in all of these versions that Geppetto's financial situation is really elastic.
Yeah.
Like if you want Geppetto to be like practically destitute, you can do that.
Yep.
In this one, he's incredibly popular and sells a shitload of toys.
Very successful.
Everyone loves him.
And his whole thing at the beginning, so this is the journey that Geppetto goes on, right?
Yeah.
Like his whole thing at the beginning is he has always really wanted a child. He's become a toy maker because he loves children, and he's really judgmental of the parents and the way that their kids are acting in his store. Like, why can't you control your children, and why do people who are such terrible parents have children when I, who would be a perfect parent, don't have a child? Of course, I would bring my child up to be just like me, because obviously that's something that you can decide to just do. And so he learns throughout the course of the movie that it's not always so easy, and that you have to kind of let your child go their own way and do their own thing, and you can't just raise a child to become a toy maker if they don't want to be a toy maker.
Yeah, that's the big thing they really stick on, is that he is convinced that his son will be a toy maker like him.
Yes.
And Pinocchio says, I don't want to do that. And he doesn't understand. I don't know. Loving your kid for who they are, not for who you want them to be. I'm not, I know that you knew that was the message.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm telling you that that's the message. Like, that is the message. We agreed that was the message. I was in a place emotionally where I was ready to be affected by that message.
Yes, I see that. I see that.
It's just a heck of a message.
Yeah.
I will say at the beginning, I don't think they were doing a good enough job to make the parents shitty enough for his song at the beginning
the
to
parents
work.
were fine.
They were, but that's the thing. I think we saw the twist coming really early on, that like it was very clear that he was going to learn that being a parent is not as easy as he thought it was.
Yes.
That made me kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
He does go to another town in it that they invented that where all of the children are amazing and perfect. A real Stepford children.
Yeah.
And
there's a reason for that.
The reason for that is that everyone gets their kids, not the old-fashioned way, but they get their kids from Professor Buon Ragazzo, played by René Auberjonois.
R.I.P.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of good TV actors who are in these ones that we're watching, because we've already had our first Seinfeld appearance.
Yeah.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays the Blue Fairy.
Yes.
So we get another Seinfeld appearance.
Yep.
This one alone has 2 Star Trek appearances.
I know. Well, we're going to come to the second one in a second, but why don't you talk about the good professor?
Yeah, Rene Auberjonois plays Professor Bonragazzo. He has a machine that allows him to build children.
Yes.
It's never really clear how he's doing it. My pet theory is that he's digging up corpses of children and reanimating them.
That would certainly answer my question of what does he do with all the children that people don't want? Because he creates about 17 children for Geppetto to like take a look at.
Yeah.
That he rejects. And I'm like, what does he do with them?
Yeah.
Because they're just children.
Mhm.
It actually made me pretty uncomfortable.
Like, it almost would have been good if they were more robotic or something.
Or like just not animated yet, you know, not just like fully alive and saying like, oh, it's my papa, my new papa. Like that. I didn't like that. That made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, so they add this whole thing in there while Geppetto is on the road trying to find Pinocchio.
Yes.
And of course he does learn that that's not what he wants. He doesn't want a perfect kid. He wants his kid, who is Pinocchio. Talk about your man.
So the villain in this is played by Brent Spiner, who is Data from Star Trek, who I have met. He gets a bunch of songs. I don't know. I think he's really good in this.
So he plays Stromboli.
Stromboli.
You tell everyone the thing you pointed out to me. Why is it so special that Brent Spiner is in a version of Pinocchio?
Data, the character of Data, his whole thing is that he wants to be human. He's better than human. He's superhuman, right? He's an android. He can do basically everything better than humans can do, except he doesn't have a heart.
Yeah.
His longing is always to be a real boy. And from the very first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, Riker calls him Pinocchio. And
like literally in episode 1.
Literally in episode 1, he's called Pinocchio. And then there's also a really direct comparison because in this one, like he's trying to like keep Pinocchio prisoner to like display him because he's so unique and different. And I said, oh, this is just like that episode of Star Trek where Data gets kidnapped to be like put in someone's museum. Like that did happen. There were a lot of Star Trek tie-ins in this episode. Just made me really happy.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
That part of it was fun. Can we talk about some other stuff that works?
Sure.
Like we mentioned Stephen Schwartz before. Let's talk about the music.
Yeah.
Here's my opinion of the music. I'm interested to hear yours.
Broadway style.
They may not be the best songs, but they're all good songs.
Stephen Schwartz wrote Wicked. Like,
Yes.
It's not like he can't write a song.
Right.
Yes.
So like the songs are good.
Yes.
They are good. They are all solid. They are all none of them are too simple. Like they don't have that thing that we've seen in the earlier versions where there are people who like aren't really good at writing musicals. They end up writing songs that are not challenging or interesting in any way. You end up having a lot of songs that don't have bridges in them.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of verse, chorus.
Yeah.
A Stephen Schwartz song, you can be assured will have a bridge.
It's a real song.
Yeah,
It's a real song.
It is a real song. So like, I feel like the one I'm thinking of is Just Because It's Magic, which is like a big duet that the Blue Fairy and Geppetto are singing to each other about how he's like, you screwed up and you were supposed to give me a kid, but he's such a problem. And she's like, just because it's magic doesn't mean it's perfect. And it's a bop.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit of a bop. I think it's probably the best song in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Except for Since I Gave My Heart Away at the end, which is the thing that made me cry.
Right.
The music's good. And also because it is a Disney production, they can actually musically reference the bops for the ages that were in the original one, which they hold back from doing a lot. Like there's no When You Wish Upon a Star in this, but there is I've Got No Strings.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I do think the themes work. I appreciate that they made it about something. Can I just really quickly go through some of the things that I thought didn't work in this? You've already mentioned a few.
Yeah.
This thing is too winking. Like it has really strong forget what you think you know
Yeah,
vibes,
it does have that.
which I hate hearing at the beginning of something. It's awful. There is really a line in it where they say, I mean, the thing that I'm about to say was done to excess in the Disney remake from last year. But there is a line where someone says, faster than you can say Jiminy Cricket. And it's just like the balls.
There's a couple things like that.
The cojones, the absolute chutzpah to say faster than you can say Jiminy Cricket in a production of Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Fuck you. No, don't
Fuck
do
you,
that.
sirs.
Don't weaponize your nostalgia like that.
Yeah.
The production is not great. Why does the Italian countryside look so much like every Western I've ever seen? And also Sherwood Forest.
And also whenever they go outside on Star Trek.
Yeah, it's just Southern California.
Yeah.
Just looks like Southern California. I think there are some great performances in this. I don't think that Drew Carey or Julia Louis-Dreyfus are at their best in this one. I think they're both trying very hard, and I think they're having a lot of fun.
Doesn't play to their strengths.
Yeah. This is the one for me where it really hit me that we were starting to see them all kind of blend together.
Yeah.
I already mentioned the thing about how Geppetto's financial situation can be wildly different.
Yeah.
But like the way that they turn into donkeys on this one involves a roller coaster.
Yes.
And we had just seen that from 4 years before in the JTT one. There is a thing that was introduced in that one. I don't think it was in any of the ones before that we watched, and we didn't mention it, but the way they get out of the whale is Pinocchio. They're in the blowhole. Pinocchio lies intentionally to Geppetto to make his nose grow, and they use the big nose to, like, in some way get them out of the whale.
Yeah.
That comes back in this one.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing all of these things that are happening in earlier versions of it. And so this was the moment where that really crystallized for me that, like, oh, we're seeing something that is moving so far from the original book that I don't know we're going to see any that are going to really embrace the original book.
That's right. We also forgot to mention that Usher is in this.
Oh, yeah.
And Wayne Brady.
Yeah.
Very 2000.
Very, it's very ABC in the year 2000. Like, put Wayne Brady and Drew Carey in something together. It'll make a fortune.
Yeah. I really want to talk about this next one.
Okay, and you want to talk about it obviously because it's so bad. Like, this is
warned me.
Yeah,
that this was famously bad.
Like, as I said this at the top, this is the one that everyone knows is terrible. This is the 2002 version, directed by Roberto Benigni, from a screenplay by Roberto Benigni, starring Roberto Benigni
and his wife.
Well, obviously, Nicoletta Brasi is in everything he makes.
Yeah.
She's always in everything that he makes. He didn't write the whole thing by himself. He co-wrote it with Vincenzo Cerami. So I just want to say that. This has a thing that a lot of movies don't get. I think it's quite the feather in the cap, a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Quite an accomplishment.
We knew that it was going to be a special experience because we'd never watched anything that has just promised to be this bad. What happened?
I would argue is the best one we watched.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good.
Yeah, like everyone sit down.
It's so funny.
It's great.
It's insane, but Pinocchio is insane.
Yeah.
The book Pinocchio is wild. I think part of one's reaction might be seeing a picture of Roberto Benigni, a grown, balding man, playing Pinocchio with no makeup or anything to make him look like a puppet. I'm laughing because he's so funny in it.
Yeah.
And thinking, that is crazy. That is terrible casting. That is really strange. That's really weird. It is so internally consistent as to what the puppets are and look like. Like, all the puppets look like him. So, okay, you've just created a world. That's just world building. His performance makes total sense. His look makes total sense. It is wacky.
It's hilarious.
It's not even like magical realism. It is like fantasy.
Yeah.
The movie is influenced both by, I would say, the original story of Pinocchio, which is crazy, as well as a very specific Italian performance tradition of commedia dell'arte. It's a love letter to like Italian performance and stock characters, right? Because that's the whole thing about commedia, right? It's like all these stock characters that behave in very specific ways and are dressed and attired in very specific ways. So like you know who Punchinello is just from how they're dressed, right? Like, the Italian is clearly very, very funny because we watched it with subtitles, and as you pointed out, comedy is untranslatable.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. Let's hold off on that, the idea of translating this for a moment.
I truly enjoyed watching it from beginning to end. Like, there's some stuff in it that's weird and it's just like, oh, I don't know. But like, if you think that like we're gonna have beef with it and the beef is because this was a wacky thing for a grown man to do, that's not that.
No.
That's not what this is. I can't believe it has 0 stars in Rotten Tomatoes. I understand why, and we're gonna get into why in a second, but this movie was so good. And if you watched it in the context of watching 16 other Pinocchios and reading the book and being like very, very steeped in like what Pinocchio is and all of the tropes that all of these different versions are exploring, I think you would like it too. I think if you watch it completely out of context, it's going to seem real weird. Over to you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm trying to think of where I want to start because that was beautifully said. I just want to call out some of the characters that I think worked really well.
Yes.
First of all, Roberto Benigni as Pinocchio works.
Yes.
It actually works. Anyone who says it doesn't work, I disagree with them. Nicoletta Braschi as the Blue Fairy works.
Mhm.
She definitely works. She's real fun. They famously have chemistry.
Yes.
Like,
they are married to each other.
yeah, like it's not a problem that he puts her in all his movies because she is beautiful and talented, and
Yeah.
like they actually love each other and are funny together. So it works. Geppetto is hilarious in this.
So funny with this wig.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like this is what made you laugh more than anything in this one, is because as far as everything being translated, what did Pinocchio keep referring to his wig as?
He kept, what the subtitle kept saying, he's wearing this like yellow wig,
Mhm.
and the subtitles keep saying like, your wig looks like corn pudding or something like that. But you can hear what he's saying is polenta.
Yeah.
He's like, why does your wig look like polenta? Then when they're like in the ocean, there's this whole thing about like, I have your wig, I have your stupid wig that looks like polenta. And at one point when he's trying to get Mangiafuco to let him go and telling him about like his terrible life and everything, what he says is he came close to eating like sobbing and crying. He came close to eating a wig because it looked like polenta. And I just thought the thing about polenta was really funny, but also the fact that the subtitle wasn't translating it as polenta. They were it kept translating it as like corn pudding.
Yeah.
I was like, I know what polenta is. You can say polenta. Anyway, it was funny.
Yeah, so that's great. Geppetto is a Carlo Giuffre. He's really, really good in it. I loved the cricket in this one, the talking cricket,
yeah,
played by
cricket was so good.
Pepe Barra. He's basically the Jiminy Cricket version of the cricket as a person.
Yeah.
Because, like, Jiminy Cricket, we said the thing before about how, like, he's a cricket because we say he's a cricket.
Right.
He doesn't look like a cricket. The animals in this one are all, like, people dressed in nice clothing, but
Mhm.
they have something on them that evokes the animal.
Yes.
Something about their makeup.
Yeah.
So, like, there's an owl and, like, has a hook nose and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's consistent and works.
Yeah.
The cricket is just this bald dude in a suit, but he's got two little antenna.
Yeah.
It works beautifully. His performance is amazing. The effects work, like the way they have him jumping from place to place, but then
Uh-huh.
constantly going back to a close up on this actor, work beautifully.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. Medoro, the Blue Fairy's servant
Is a dog.
is a dog. And that's a thing you can do in a lot of different ways, but the way they decide to make him look like a dog is not just that he looks like a dog in makeup, but he's also carrying a stuffed animal around in his mouth the entire movie.
Yeah, but he's a person. Like,
Yeah.
he's a person with a big white wig that kind of looks like a poodle, but he's also carrying a stuffed animal in his mouth, as you say. Like, he's a very dignified poodle.
There are beautiful touches. And then finally, I just want to say Lucignolo is played by an actor named Kim Rossi Stewart. This lampwick, candlewick, whatever you want to call him, just tall and handsome.
He's hot.
And like, if you're going to have Roberto Benigni be this weird little grown man playing Pinocchio, have Lampwick not be a kid. Have Lampwick be like a tall, angular, handsome man.
Yeah.
Have him be a heartthrob.
Yeah.
It's this thing of being internally consistent.
Yeah.
Like the kids, it's not like in the Sandy Duncan one, the kids are all grown men.
Yeah.
In this one, all the kids I feel like are all like dudes in their 20s.
Yeah.
So at least it's consistent and they're younger.
Yeah.
But they're still grown men.
Yeah.
And I thought it worked.
One thing we haven't mentioned, because I don't feel like this scene's been emphasized that much in the versions we've seen so far, is there's a scene in Pinocchio where the Blue Fairy has rescued him. He's, quote, dying. He's going to die unless he takes this medicine. And he's like saying, no, I won't take it. I won't take it. It doesn't taste good. Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, okay, you're going to die. I better call the Undertakers. And the Undertakers come in and they're all, I don't know how to describe it. They're bunnies.
They're dower rabbits carrying a coffin.
They're dour rabbits. And for whatever reason, this scene is very, very funny. And it's very, very funny in this. And we're going to tell you about a different version later where it's even funnier.
Yeah.
Just the way that they did all of this sort of like animal work was really good.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Let's talk about what doesn't work.
Okay.
So there's two things. And I think both of these things to me explain why it has 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's why not a single professional critic was willing to say, yes, good. Not a single one. One reason we already talked about, which is that it's Roberto Benigni playing Pinocchio. It ended up not being a problem for us.
Yeah.
But I can see how it would be a problem for someone. I could understand if someone is just kind of finding it off-putting that it's this middle-aged man playing this child.
Yes.
More than anything, though, it's the Miramax cut of it.
Yeah.
Did we watch a little of it together?
We watched like 2 minutes of it. I think we watched like the Lucignolo scene.
Yeah, I kind of skipped around in it, too, and I also found the American cast. It's all, they, first of all, edited it down.
Yeah.
And they dubbed the whole thing.
They dubbed it, yeah.
I've got the cast list here. they could not have made worse choices for some of these. Not because these are not good actors, but because they are not appropriate for the role.
Yeah.
Here are some that are not that bad. The Blue Fairy was Glenn Close in the American dub. That's not that bad.
Sure.
That's fine. Geppetto was David Suchet.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
The Talking Cricket, John Cleese.
Okay.
All right. Like, those are the ones that make a little more sense. The Cat and the Fox were Eddie Griffin and Cheech Marin.
Okay.
So, like, right off the bat, you're going to lean into, like, using these two actors as racial stereotypes that don't even match what you're seeing on screen.
Yeah.
So you're just forcing something in where it didn't need to be. That's one right there. Kevin James is Manjafuko.
Okay.
And, like, I don't mind Kevin James, but he doesn't evoke that character at all.
Yeah.
As shown in the movie. Topher Grace is Lucignolo.
Okay.
Again, does not evoke that character. Here's the big one, though. Breckin Meyer is Pinocchio.
Okay.
I love Breckin Meyer. Love him. I think he's great. In no way evokes the character that Roberto Benigni is playing.
Yeah.
Like, at all. It
Yeah.
is terrible casting. And I feel bad for Breckin Meyer having to be in this. Like, I'm glad he got paid for it, but this was beneath him.
Yeah.
He should never have been cast in it. So, having seen some of the dub, it is such a profound mess. Coupled with the fact that some people are just never going to be okay with Roberto Benigni playing Pinocchio,
Yeah.
I can see why it has 0%.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
But it's a shame because I feel like Roberto Benigni performing in his own language is so funny.
Mhm.
How could you possibly? That's untranslatable. Like,
Yeah.
how could you possibly translate it? I don't understand why they didn't just release it with subtitles. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like,
to me at all.
imagine taking any movie with Robin Williams and dubbing him in a
Yeah.
different language.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like, that's the kind of comedian he is. It's like a full body performance.
yeah, and it's so improvisational.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. Like, I don't know that it is improvisation, but Roberto Benigni makes everything feel improvisational.
Yeah.
And that's part of his charm.
Yeah.
And that you can't dub that.
You can't dub that. The scene at the end, he's so physical. Like, the scene at the end where he's turned into a real boy, he doesn't look any different, really, except for his clothing.
He's got real clothes on.
Yeah,
now.
except for his clothing. And then he's like, what happened to the puppet? And the camera cuts, and Roberto Benigni is just like sprawled in a chair, like with his eyes closed and his tongue hanging out, like in the puppet costume. I've never laughed harder. It's like the funniest cut. Isn't the funniest cut in the movie?
Yeah.
It was so funny.
It's like, it's absurd and it knows it's absurd.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, this is not a mess. They knew
Yeah.
exactly what they were doing
That's
when they
right.
did that.
That's right.
Biggest surprise of this whole episode, this one is good. And you say the best one. It's not my favorite one that we watched, but it's up there.
It's up there. Yeah.
Moving on. Okay. I'm excited to talk about this one
I see.
for a few minutes.
I see.
This is the one we talked about at the beginning
Yeah.
that we alluded to, that I found out too late that this was a thing. I don't know how I could have missed it.
Yep. We did watch it, though.
You're welcome that I made you sit through 3 hours
3
of
hours.
this interminable
It was 3 hours long.
garbage.
It was 3 hours long.
I can't hide how I feel about it. This is terrible. This is the worst one.
Yeah. Yes, for many reasons. Yes.
It was the longest.
It was, I mean, if we're not counting the erotic adventures of Pinocchio, which I don't think we should, because that's not, that was not trying to be an
Yeah, but
adaptation of Pinocchio.
We got some joy out of watching it because it was silly and not very long.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This was not silly and was very long.
It's really bad. Okay, so this was a 2-part miniseries that was a co-Italian British production.
Yep.
And the best way that I can make it make sense in my head is that Italy wanted to export their bad Pinocchio adaptations and save the good Pinocchio adaptations for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, we'll get the Brits to work with us on this one. So it was directed by Alberto Cerrone from a teleplay by Ivan Cotroneo and Carlo Mazzotta. Starred, and this was like the main reason we watched it, Bob Hoskins as Geppetto.
Yes.
And a little kid named Robbie Kay as Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really the only other person that I think is worth mentioning by name right now, because he's the only one that anyone's really going to know, is Joss Ackland.
Yes.
As
Mr.
Master
Apple?
Cherry?
Master Cherry.
Master
Master
Cherry.
Cherry.
Geppetto's frenemy
Yeah.
from next door.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm bringing up Joss Ackland specifically is because Joss Ackland, come on down. You are officially friend of the pod.
It's amazing.
He made an appearance in the 3 and 4 Musketeers from 1973 and 1974. He was also in The Little Prince from 1974.
Uh-huh.
He was in The Hunt for Red October in 1990 and Miracle on 34th Street in 1994. He was the CEO of the Evil Store across the street
I remember
from
that.
the store that's
Oh,
not
no.
Macy's.
I remember.
He is now officially friend of the pod. That is kind of fun.
Yes.
Can I make this one quick?
Yeah.
Here-
Please make it quick because this movie was so long.
Here's what works. Bob Hoskins is great.
He's great.
He's always great.
He's in a different movie.
Yes.
He's in a different movie that he's taking very seriously.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's great. And I actually think Joss Ackland is also pretty fun.
He's pretty fun.
I think he's playing it very, very broad. Sometimes too broad,
Yeah.
but he is Joss Ackland and he has charisma.
Yeah.
And he's fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I would argue with Bob Hoskins, the statement Bob Hoskins is great, is because the script is so bad that, like, I don't think anyone could be great with the plot that he's being asked to enact.
He's still
like, the
fun
whole thing
to
with
watch.
the boat, like building the boat on the
Yes.
beach, was so stupid. Yeah.
Okay, so here are the two. Let me try to boil it down.
Yeah.
Here are the two things that don't work. One, the production itself is a poor production.
Yes.
And two, just the basic storytelling is bad.
Yes.
So can I give some reasons why I think the production was bad?
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple that I can think of.
Okay, so almost all the actors are Italian.
Yeah.
And none of the voices you hear are their real voices.
Yes.
But they are all clearly speaking in English.
Yes.
But they dubbed them all with English actors.
Yes.
And the dubbing is super off-putting.
Yeah.
And doesn't work.
I honestly think there might have been a couple that were speaking Italian because their lips are so far from matching what the voice is saying. Like so Carlo Collodi is a character in this.
Well, that's another thing.
And he has a like servant maid. I don't think she's speaking English. Obviously what we hear is English, but I actually literally don't think she is speaking English.
With her in particular, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yes.
Yeah, so that wasn't great. There's CGI in this, and it is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, truly, truly terrible. So, and in 2009 as well, but they had no money.
Yeah.
So the puppet show scene, all the puppets are CG.
Yeah.
And it's real, real bad.
Yeah.
This is like 80s level kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty much garbage to look at. The staging is all really bad, and the costume work is bad. Can I talk about the hook hand?
Yeah.
Okay. So you already mentioned it, but there is a really extended subplot in this movie where Geppetto is repairing a broken boat on a beach to then sail across the ocean to the Americas, where Pinocchio has been taken.
Yes.
As a performer.
Where he thinks he's been taken.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's these guys that talk to him all the time, and they're telling him how the sea is dangerous and he's going to die. And one guy's like, hey, the sea took my hand. And he holds his arm up, and he's got a hook hand.
Yeah.
But, like, they didn't even try to make it look like it's like he didn't have his hand. Like, he's bending his wrist constantly, and he's using his hook hand. Like, he's using the hand part as a hand.
Yeah, it's just a hand. It's just a hook. It's just like from a costume shop. Like, they got like a hook, but his hand is inside it, and they didn't even bother to take like the base of it where your hand would go to put it like inside the sleeve, so it's just the hook.
We're not nitpicking.
No.
It's not like this was the only bad thing.
It's just an example.
Just take something like that and put it in every scene of the entire thing. Do you want to say what our favorite one was?
There was a piece of set design. So you know how sometimes you're like watching a TV show and you're like, I have that shirt. And it's like kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I have that shirt. But it like does at the same time kind of take you out of it.
Set up where this happens.
So they're on Pleasure Island, and Pinocchio's just kind of like walking around, and there's all like kind of toys and like things to do and things to play with.
In old dirty Italy.
And he passes this bright red, shiny rocking horse that is a moose. A moose rocking horse.
How do you know it's a rocking moose?
Because we have it. It's in our house right now.
Where did we buy it?
We bought it at IKEA, as did presumably the production designers of this movie. They're in a fantasy universe, and they have a very, very recognizable item of set design, front and center, by the way, like front and center, not just like in the background, that we own. I mean, I assume you'll put like a picture of this thing in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll link to it.
Yeah. But these are small details. I just really want to talk about the elephant in the room here.
If you're going to take the high level, let me just give one other nitpicky thing.
Go ahead.
When his friend this is a thing we have not talked about up until now, but obviously he and his friend Lampwick are both turned into donkeys. And then in the story, he later meets Lampwick, and Lampwick dies.
Yeah.
As a donkey.
As a donkey.
They have that scene in this. But just as the perfect encapsulation of how inept this production was, the donkey dies.
Yep.
And Pinocchio is like, no, Lampwick, you are dead. And then the camera goes, we cut back to the donkey. And before we cut out of the scene, the donkey like takes a really big breath.
Because it's a donkey.
Because it's an alive donkey. And it's just, this is the simplest thing. This isn't like, oh, they shouldn't have got the rocking moose from IKEA. It's like there's a lot of steps of communication that it takes to get like a particular thing taken out of set design, right? Whoever was editing this saw that the donkey breathed.
They could have just cut it like a split second sooner.
Just cut 1 second sooner and you've eliminated that from your... But this is so inept.
Yeah.
It's so inept. You're going to talk about the elephant in the room.
I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. Here's the elephant in the room. Pinocchio's not a puppet. He's a boy.
Well, that's okay. I mean, Paul Rubens was a
There's no...
human.
Yeah, but I'm looking at a picture of Paul Rubens, right? And he's got like a long nose on him and he's kind of made up, with makeup in a puppet-like way.
And I am remembering that in that production, they constantly reference that he is a puppet.
He is a puppet.
So we are given to understand that he is a puppet made of wood.
Yes. Same with Roberto Benigni.
Mhm.
There are other... he is a puppet. He doesn't have like any makeup to indicate that he's a puppet, but like there is like I said, there is an internal consistency in the world that like puppets look and act in a certain way.
Well, and as I'm sure you're about to say, like if you're going to make a production of Pinocchio, like Pinocchio needs to be a puppet.
He's not a puppet. Like he gets turned into a boy at the beginning and he says, "Oh, this is great. I'm a boy. I'm an alive boy." The fairy says to him, "Well, you are made of flesh and blood, but you have the heart of a puppet." And so the final transformation at the end from boy with the heart of a puppet to boy with the heart of a boy, it's quite subtle. Like, I guess I just don't understand. Like,
this is one of those ways they try to save money.
Yeah.
And it somehow, no one said no.
They literally say you're not a puppet. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose if he's not a puppet?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. It absolutely does. Here's the deal. I'm looking at my notes and I have all this stuff about like things that are not good in it.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of choices, lots of writing choices, lots of moments that don't work. It is probably not worth going through all of them. Can I just say, like, in my heart, the biggest problem that I have with it, and it's directly related to what you're talking about.
Sure.
The thing that offended me in this adaptation is, you mentioned it before, Collodi is a character in this.
Yes.
He is a character. He is a writer. He's trying to come up with his new story. He meets this he meets this woodcarver who is Bob Hoskins.
Yep.
And finds out that the guy lost his like wife and son.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, now I am inspired to tell a story." So now he's writing his story, but now we actually see the whole thing acted out. But he's constantly cutting in to be the voice of the author.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm so offended by this, but when you bookend your story with the author writing it, this is more than just, here's the book Pinocchio and we are opening it.
Yep.
We are actually showing you the author writing it. You better not fucking change anything.
Yeah.
Like, don't have the blue fairy show up and give him life at the beginning of the story, because Collodi didn't write that.
Yeah.
That it offends me.
Yeah.
To me, that is the worst part of this whole thing. It's not just, if it was only that he was a boy with the heart of a puppet, that would have been one thing. But then to go that extra step and say, and this is what we're going to tell audiences Collodi actually wrote.
Yeah.
That is offensive.
Yeah, it's really bad.
I have nothing else to say about this one.
Yeah, neither do I. The next one, I think we can probably cover pretty quickly, which is great, because the last three, I think we're going to have a lot to say. So this is going to be the quick bridge into three that we had opinions about.
Yeah. Our big finish.
We're nearing the end, but we really want to finish strong here. So let's just talk about this one really quickly for the sake of completeness. It was an Italian animated production from 2012.
You have a lot to say about this one, don't you?
Nope.
How many notes do you have?
None.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Then I think we can make this one a little quick.
Yeah, let's make it brief.
Okay, it was written and directed by Enzo Dallo. It is, as you say, animated cartoon of Pinocchio. I think a bunch of stuff works in this one. It looks great. It is a beautiful movie.
Yes.
If anyone is, familiar with like Persepolis or the cartoon saloon movies, like the Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea, it kind of evokes that.
It looks really cool.
It is really beautiful animation, and the design is beautiful. It takes place in Italy. It's very much a very cartoony version of the Italian countryside. And it has some personality. There's a musical number in it about ordering food. There's a scene where the fox and the cat are gonna burn him out of a tree, and they're dancing around the tree singing about the fire, and it's got a lot of personality, and it's really evocative. And Alidoro the dog,
yes,
he doesn't show up in almost any of the other adaptations. He's the police officer's dog.
Yep.
He ends up taking a shine to Pinocchio because Pinocchio saves his life. He is the best part of this entire movie.
He's real cute.
There's a whole scene where he's trying to, Geppetto is going to the cops to tell them, my son sailed into the ocean and now he's dead. And Alidoro's saying, like, no, Pinocchio's not dead, but he can't talk because he's a dog. So it's got real Timmy fell down the well vibes, and it works.
Yes.
He's really funny.
Yep.
Alidoro's the best part. Those are the things that work. This is why we're going to spend like a record short time on this.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it ends up being nothing. It has some personality, and it has a lot of no personality. The music is often not very good. It just doesn't really have much to say. It just seems to be, we're going to do Pinocchio and make it look pretty. And that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up being completely inoffensive.
Yeah.
But none of it is so good that we really want to talk about it, and none of it is so bad that we really want to talk about it.
Yep.
I guess if you were going to watch a cartoon, you should watch the Disney version.
Yeah.
But if you really want to watch one that's Italian, watch this one because it is fine.
Yeah. I think it also probably suffered from falling just chronologically in between ones that we had really strong opinions about. We didn't watch the miniseries we just talked about. We didn't watch that in order. So we watched this immediately after watching the Roberto Benigni one. So like after watching that masterpiece
and having such an amazing reaction to it.
Yeah, I was just like, all right, I guess just like a plain old Pinocchio, fine, whatever. You know? So
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Let's move on to 2019. What a delight this one turned out to be.
A delight. A pleasure and a delight.
I had low expectations for the 2002 version. I had no expectations for this one.
Yeah, I had no idea what this was.
The only thing I knew about it was this is the one that Roberto Benigni is also in.
Yeah, I was so confused about that because you had said to me, like, Roberto Benigni made 2. And I was like, wait, he made 2? Like, he directed 2 different Pinocchios? And I was very unclear about it. And finally, you were like, no, you don't understand. He made 1, and then they just asked him to be in this one as Geppetto for reasons. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes much more sense to me.
Yeah.
So wait, explain what it is that we're talking about.
So this was the 2019 movie, Pinocchio. It is Italian. It was directed by Matteo Garrone from a screenplay by Garrone and Massimo Ceccherini, who also played the fox in this, which is kind of fun.
That's interesting.
Apparently, this was a passion project for Garrone, and it sounds like the movies he normally would do are like crime movies for adults. But he also really wanted to make Pinocchio and had wanted to make it since he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I feel like there is no better proof that Roberto Benigni's first Pinocchio is actually good than the fact that someone who'd been wanting to make it since he was a kid, preceding that movie, wanted the guy who made that movie to be in his version of it. Yes. Which he was.
He was.
I'd love to, because I feel like this is going to be one of those ones that a lot of people haven't seen.
Yeah.
People absolutely should. It is available in the United States. It's on Amazon Prime, either in Italian or in English. I watched a little bit of the dub. Watch it in Italian.
Watch it in Italian.
If you can.
Yeah, watch it in Italian.
It's definitely the way to do it.
Yeah.
I want to give everyone an idea of the production that we're talking about here. This is definitely... It falls into one of those ones that we keep seeing of these like modern fantasy movies that are just trying to be as dirty as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the look of the movie. It's a very dirty movie.
Yeah.
It wants to make everything feel very lived in.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like that's holding the movie back. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
This is one of those places where I feel like it's not holding it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's trying to create an internal consistency to the world, which I appreciate. I think it's trying to do world building, and I think it's trying to do it in a way that, like, is both really immersive, but also, like, when funny stuff happens, like, it still doesn't take you out of the story. It's, like, funny. So do you want to talk about some of the funny stuff in this movie?
Yeah, well, I mean... The tone and the humor is one of the things that works.
Yes.
It's a funny movie.
Yes.
Roberto Benigni as Geppetto is funny.
Yes.
There's a whole scene at the beginning where he like is destitute and he like goes into an inn and is just going around saying like this table needs to be fixed.
The chair,
and the
your
chair
door.
needs to be fixed. Your door's terrible. And the owner is like, Geppetto, what are you talking about? It's all fine.
He's like, I can fix it for you. Just like it won't cost you very much. And the owner's like, do you want just like a bowl of soup?
Here, you don't fix any of my stuff, but here's a bowl of soup. Shut up.
Yeah.
It's a very funny scene.
Very funny.
And it's Roberto Benigni being him, doing that very like improvisational feel, but it's very specific. That's great. And that's a funny scene. And we get a lot of funny scenes. But then there's that entire section of the movie where Pinocchio is staying with the Blue Fairy at her old house.
Yes.
And she has her servant, the snail. I'm pretty sure that few things have made us laugh as hard as you, especially as just all the jokes that happened in this section of the movie.
Yeah. Well, this is one where the blue fairy gets older as the movie goes on, which we didn't see too much, but that is from the book, I think.
The Adventures of Bucatini had that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but yeah, usually the blue fairy is an adult.
Yeah. So at the beginning, she's a child, and she's like clearly in the care of this caretaker who is a giant snail.
Because in the book, it's a snail.
It's a snail. But this is a lady with a giant snail body. Part of the joke is that she moves very slow. And part of the joke is that she leaves a slime trail wherever she goes because she's a snail that is very slippery and wet and also like gross. So the scene, and I realize I'm trying to describe something that's like just like prime physical comedy, so forgive me. But the scene where all of the little bunny undertakers come to like take Pinocchio away, the snail is in the room, and as Pinocchio agrees to drink the medicine and they go to leave the room, they're carrying this coffin and they all like just slip and fall one by one.
They all slip and fall coming in.
They all slip and fall coming in.
Then they have to leave, and it takes a really long time. And if it wasn't funny, it would be awful to sit through.
It's so funny. It's like, I think in any Pinocchio that we saw, one of the funniest, certainly like the funniest visual thing that we saw, other than maybe Roberto Benigni lying like as the dead puppet. The look of this Pinocchio is very cool. I really like how he looks. You insisted it's just makeup. Like it has a very CGI look to it, but like I believe you that if you say it's just makeup.
My understanding is it's just makeup.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a young actor named Federico Jalapi who plays Pinocchio, and he is in a lot of makeup. The most makeup. I had a lot of respect for this kid because apparently being in that amount of makeup is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But he did it.
He was so good.
He's so good.
Like that's part of the reason I thought he was CGI was because his acting was so good.
Yeah.
Even under the makeup.
It's a little I've seen some people say that it's off-putting. There is the moment where Geppetto's carving him and Pinocchio's eyes open for the first time and he says, say it with me now, Babbo. For the first of 1,000 times.
There's a lot of Babbo in this movie.
Babbo, which I definitely translated as like, Papa. It's a little unsettling because it's not really him. I could see someone being a little put off by that at the beginning, but I actually think his makeup works really well for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And then it's even more consistent because then when he meets Mangiafuco and meets all the other marionettes, the design is so perfectly consistent.
Yeah.
They all look exactly the same way he does.
Yeah.
So it's this weird moment where they all see him. First of all, they don't all see him and go, Pinocchio. They all see him and go, one of us.
Yes.
You are clearly one of us. And there is no doubt that he is one of them because they all have this very kind of like gnarled wooden quality to themselves that is beautiful.
It looks great.
It's beautiful.
It's very cool. Yeah. And that was the thing I responded to in the other Benigni movie, which was this internal consistency of the world and how puppets look, what puppets look like.
Yeah.
One thing I came to find out is that I don't like it when Pinocchio, a puppet, looks and acts and feels completely different than other puppets who are also part of the world.
Yeah. It was super weird in that miniseries that we just talked about where you have Pinocchio, a human child, standing in front of 3 really poorly animated CG marionettes, and they're going, one of us, one of us.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's not this, though. This, I just, the relationship between Geppetto and Pinocchio in this is really sweet.
Babbo.
Pinocchio, as you pointed out, is more of sort of a wide-eyed innocent than in some of the other versions. He's not so much making bad decisions as having kind of bad decisions forced upon him. He's very sweet.
I feel like they do a good job of keeping a lot of his decisions from the book.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely feels like the character from the book to me, but whereas like other Pinocchios definitely to me evoke like chaos demon.
Yeah.
This Pinocchio doesn't feel like a chaos demon. He feels like a little kid.
Yeah, he's like quietly observant.
Yeah.
He's not like impish. And it did have this sort of moment where again, like these sort of moments that I tended to respond to were the moments where it feels like a parent wrote the line or like a parent understood something. It was like, he does burn his feet off in this one. Geppetto's reaction is basically like, I made you such beautiful feet and look what you did. And I often say to our kid, like, I worked really hard to make your brain. Please don't like bang your head on purpose against the side of your bed because you think it's fun. You know what I mean? Like, I worked really hard to make you. Please don't hurt yourself, which I feel like is a pretty universal parental feeling.
Yeah, I loved his performance.
Yeah, it was really good.
And Benini's just as good in this as he was in the other one.
Yeah.
Like his performance as Geppetto is fantastic. Like I love him.
Yeah.
He's great. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
This movie takes place in Italy too.
Yeah.
It is Italian.
Yes.
Everything about this movie screams Italy.
Italian from Italy. Yes.
It just feels really lovingly crafted. It feels like it was made by people with a point of view. It tries to keep a lot of the stuff from the book. It doesn't feel like it's just aping stuff from the Disney version.
No.
This one didn't feel like there was any of the Disney stuff in there. This one felt like it was honoring the book.
Yes.
Like one of the things I loved about the script is the way they incorporate a lot of things from the book but then cut them down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole sequence in it where the fox and the cat convince him that if he takes the 5 gold coins that Mangiafoco gave him, and instead of just giving them to his father Geppetto, if he buries them in the Field of Miracles, they will grow into 1,000 coins. And he buries them and they take them and he goes on adventures. And one of the things that happens in the book is he then reports the crime to the police and a judge throws him in jail.
Yeah.
And it is absurd that he is thrown in jail because he is the victim.
Yes.
But the book is absurd. So
Yes.
an absurd thing happens. He's thrown in jail, and finally there's this thing where in that area, the ruler has had a kid, and as a celebration, all the criminals are being let out of jail. And so it takes a long time for him to get out of jail. In this one, it's one scene.
Yeah.
He meets the judge, who is, by the way,
A monkey.
a monkey.
Yep.
It's a very funny monkey.
It's very funny
The
monkey.
makeup is great.
It's so good.
Like they really go all in on all of the animals. Like they are all still recognizably people, but they have intense makeup.
Yeah.
And I really liked all of it. Like even the tuna at the end
Yeah.
that he meets inside the dogfish.
Yeah.
The tuna's a bit of a pickle to look at,
Yeah.
but I thought it looked great.
Sure.
Because like just human face on
a fish.
a
Yeah.
two human face on a fish body.
Yes.
He meets the judge. The judge says, well, here, innocent people go to jail.
Mhm.
We'd only let you go if you were a criminal, so take him to jail. And then Pinocchio does this funny little thing where he's like, no, I'm a criminal. I've done lots of bad things. And he
Mhm.
goes through like a laundry list of the bad things he's done. And the judge is like, well, I guess we got to let you go. And they let him go. And it's one scene. So it honors the fact that that's in the book and it honors the absurdity of the book, but it also doesn't make us as an audience sit through 20 minutes of him being in jail and needing to get out through different machinations. Like, I really liked the writing of it. I
Yeah.
thought it was great.
I agree.
Can I tell you, by the way, what I feel like doesn't work about this movie?
Sure.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Like
It's really good.
I think nothing, maybe?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the cricket. We haven't talked about, like, there's so many specific things we haven't talked about, but coming out of it, we felt like everything worked. And also, every single time Pinocchio says, Babbo, it just broke our hearts,
so
and it was
sweet.
beautiful.
Yes. Can we talk about one that was not as successful?
Lord, save me from 2022's Disney's Pinocchio.
This was not good. This was the first one I've seen of all of these like Disney live action remakes. Managed to avoid up until this point because I am not really interested in that.
I mean, like Pete's Dragon we watched for the show,
That's
but that
true.
one doesn't really
That's
count.
a little bit different.
That's kind of the exception that proves the rule because it is trying to do something so different
yeah.
from
It wasn't.
the original.
It wasn't a remake at all. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand the point. I don't understand what they're trying to do with this. I don't know who the audience for it is. Is it people who are older who feel nostalgic for Pinocchio? Is it people that they want to introduce to Pinocchio for the first time? I don't know who the audience for this is. I don't know who was asking for it because none of these live action remakes have been particularly successful as far as I know. So I don't know why they keep doing them
Well,
because
Are you-
nobody likes them.
are you kidding?
Yeah.
Some of them are ridiculously successful.
Yeah.
Lion King made over $1 billion.
But didn't everyone say how bad and weird it was?
Yeah, they all said that after they bought tickets to see it.
Okay.
These movies make a shitload of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that answers my question.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to break it to you. they're wildly popular.
Where to begin? Where to dive in? I mean, obviously the source material for this is not the book. It's the original 1940 Disney movie.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. And if you didn't know that, seeing this CGI creation of Pinocchio rendered
It looks like Pinocchio.
that looks exactly like the Disney Pinocchio we know, just in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Like that's how you know.
Like that's the least worst part. But it's funny because they added a ton to the plot and none of it made sense. None of it added anything. There's so much that they tried to like shove into the plot of Pinocchio that was neither from the book nor from the original movie. That just didn't work at all.
This is my thing about this.
Yeah.
So like Go ahead. Ask me. We've been talking about all the stuff that works before we talk about the stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah. What works?
Nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
One thing.
What?
One tiny thing.
What works?
I said this earlier, like Jiminy Cricket in the original doesn't really ever do his job.
Yeah.
There is one moment they've added in this one where Pinocchio is not going to go to school because he's met Honest John and the cat. And in this version, Jiminy Cricket convinces him to go to school. He acts as his conscience. He says, you got to go to school. And so Pinocchio does go to school.
Mhm.
He's immediately thrown out on his ass by the teacher because he is a puppet and they don't teach puppets at school.
Yep.
So it ends up not going well, but Jiminy Cricket once in this movie actually does his job as a conscience.
Gotcha.
That's the only good thing I have to say about this movie. Everything else is bad. Can I talk about the thing you were just talking about?
Yes.
This movie to me is fighting for an identity.
Yeah.
Like it is trying to be both an affecting story that stands on its own because it does a lot of stuff that's not in the original. Like it is trying to add things. There's like that thing that happens at the end where they invert the after they get out of Monstro,
Mhm.
who in this version is not a whale anymore. Now Monstro is just a giant creature with lots of tentacles.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a pickle.
Yep.
In this one, Pinocchio's okay, but it looks like Geppetto has died.
Yeah.
And sitting over him, Pinocchio crying, sings When You Wish Upon a Star.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk singing in this
Yeah.
movie. A lot of chanting.
Yeah, it's a very unsuccessful musical.
Yeah.
I would say just as a musical, it's very unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But like this to me is the perfect moment because it is trying to craft something new to make this movie stand on its own as its own emotional story. We're going to change something. Now it's Pinocchio crying over Geppetto. But the only way we can communicate any of that is with really, really cynical grabs at your nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because the song doesn't mean anything to Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Like it really doesn't mean anything to him because it's not a song. It's because it's a musical. It's not a song. That's not how these aren't songs people are singing.
Yeah.
Like I've Got No Strings is an actual song he's singing in front of people.
Right.
So it's all of these really cynical nostalgia grabs that just drive me crazy. Like
Yeah. But there's new stuff too that
Yeah.
also doesn't work. That's the thing. Like the nostalgia grabs don't work and the new stuff doesn't work. Like Pinocchio's got a new friend named Lucia. Like what is her name?
Fabiana?
Fabiana.
What are you talking about? Fabiana's in the original. Don't you remember? She wants
The
to be
ballet dancer?
Yeah, she wants to be a ballet dancer, but she hurt herself, and now she's got a
brace on her leg.
a brace on her leg, and
And-
she's the one that controls all the marionettes
but
for
then
Stromboli.
but then she learns that difference is what brings her strength because she can stand on one leg to get to fish Pinocchio out of the water. That character, Fabiana?
yeah, she'd never seen her.
Yeah.
Never seen her,
She's got
not
a whole
once.
song.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very modern song. A very modern sounding song that doesn't really fit in with the rest of the songs that were originally written in 1940.
I mean, that's the problem with the music in this is
Yeah.
that like we could have a conversation about whether the songs are good or not, but at the end of the day, whether they're good is not the problem. They don't fit with the material.
Yeah.
None of them sound like the songs from the original.
Yeah, so Geppetto has a song at the beginning that we've never heard before, a brand new song that I literally wrote, was this supposed to be a song? Because I swear to God, he just speaks the first 3/4 of it. By the way, this is Tom Hanks dressed as Geppetto.
Well, yeah, okay, so really quickly,
I'm
of
not even
course
going to say playing Geppetto. I'm going to say dressed as Geppetto.
I mean, he's playing Geppetto until he's not.
Yeah.
Because there's that moment at the end where he just turns into Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Which is funny in a vacuum, but like doesn't work for the story. Let's go back for a second. Of course, it's Tom Hanks because he's reuniting with director Robert Zemeckis,
Yeah.
who we've also covered on the show recently when he did The Witches, which we also didn't like.
She also didn't like.
Directed by Robert Zemeckis, co-wrote it with Chris Weitz. All the songs, by the way, were composed and written by Alan Silvestri,
Mhm.
who has been working with Zemeckis for decades, and Glenn Ballard, I think my understanding is wrote a lot of the lyrics. Glenn Ballard he's a producer. He's a song producer. He's been around for a really long time, but like not for musicals,
Mhm.
like for pop music.
Yeah.
Which I think
Yeah.
says a lot.
Yeah, says a lot.
So like here are the songs that were added. When He Was Here With Me, which is
I did not like this.
which is Geppetto singing about his dead son.
I can live without the dead kid plot in any of these. Like I just don't need it. We're going to talk about it in a minute.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I just don't need it.
this
I don't
one
need
and-
Geppetto to have a dead kid.
this one and the next one prove to me that I'm okay with him having a dead kid if it works dramatically.
Yeah.
It doesn't in this one.
No.
But yeah, he has a dead wife and a dead kid.
Yep,
And
everyone's dead.
we find both those facts out separately, but all at the beginning. So
Yeah.
we're really like they're front loading the sorrow, and I just feel like don't do both.
Yeah.
You have to pick one.
It's just like the beginning is so slow. Like the Geppetto backstory, I literally wrote in all caps, move along. Like it is so slow. There is no Pinocchio in this movie for a very long time.
Yeah. So he sings When He Was Here With Me. Then after Pinocchio comes to life, he sings Pinocchio, Pinocchio. Then there's I Will Always Dance, which is Fabiana's song. And then we meet the coachman, who is played by Luke Evans, who is singing the coachman to Pleasure Island.
Yeah.
And that is his big song.
At least he can sing.
He can sing.
He can sing pretty well.
Yeah. I can't remember how the song goes.
No, absolutely not.
Can't remember anything about it.
No.
And I was really distracted in that moment, too. This is nitpicky, but to me it represents something bigger. There's no internal consistency in this movie with anything. They're not trying to craft a reality that makes sense, because one of the things they do is it feels much more like this takes place in Italy than the original Disney version does. But Pinocchio is still dressed as a little German boy.
Yep.
And Geppetto is surrounded by cuckoo clocks.
Yep.
So it took the thing that only bothered us in the original and has never bothered anybody else. And it's like they were trying to say, let's try to bother more people with how this doesn't really work.
Yeah.
That seems to have been their goal. So in the scene with the coachman, we meet the coachman, who is like, what are the accents we have in the movie? There's Tom Hanks doing
semi-Italian.
Like Italian light. He's doing European.
Yeah.
Like doing light European accent. We meet people who are doing Italian accents.
Yep.
Fabiana's not, she's just British.
She's British.
Yeah, not really doing much of anything. The coachman is Cockney.
Yeah.
And Lampwick, who we meet in that same scene with the coachman, he sounds like he's from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So there's no internal consistency to anything.
Yeah, no. I want to talk about Cynthia Erivo playing the Blue Fairy.
Yeah.
Cynthia Erivo is amazing.
Yep.
Not in this. Amazing
Yes.
in everything else. I don't know if you've ever seen Cynthia Erivo sing. She is such a fucking powerhouse belter. Like she was in The Color Purple and just like brought the house down. Like she is so good at singing.
Acting.
But also I'm going to talk about her singing, and I want you to know that she is so good at singing. She was so bad in this. She was so bad. She's doing her own accent, which is great. Good for her. She's British. She's a belter. She is a legit Broadway belter. And they pitched When You Wish Upon a Star up so high, like I think higher than the original version.
Mm-hmm.
Like having her try to sing it like a legit soprano. It does not suit her voice. It doesn't sound good at all. And also they've sort of cut the song like in half. Like she doesn't even have the whole song. She has like some parts of it. It is not her fault.
Which is weird because the whole scene with the Blue Fairy takes like 5 times as long as it does in the original, because she has to explain multiple times what's going on with Pinocchio.
She has to explain so many times what's happening.
What that scene didn't need was more clarity.
Yeah,
I think that scene was always famously very clear.
We understand what's happening. Like none of this is her fault. Not even agreeing to be in the movie.
No.
Like if someone came to you and they were like, "Hey, do you want to sing arguably the most iconic Disney song in a Disney movie produced by Disney?" You'd be like, "Yes, of course I want to do that." And I don't even think it's bad casting. I think she could have been great in this, but they set her up to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. I think Tom Hanks, is bad casting. I'm not sure anything going to save Tom Hanks. I think she could have done a great job.
He's wonderful. He's not good for this.
Yeah.
Can I talk about the script for a second?
Yes.
There are so many choices in this that are just terrible and made me angry. So like visual choices and dialogue choices. So visual choices, all the cuckoo clocks in Geppetto's workshop.
Oh, you hated this.
There is a Woody from Toy Story cuckoo clock and a Donald Duck one.
There was a Goofy,
a Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit one, a Maleficent one, Dumbo, the Lion King, Snow White.
Hated this.
I was so mad about this. And this gets back to that thing I was talking about before. It's like, are you trying to craft a story that stands on its own, or are you trying to make this big tribute to nostalgia? Because I don't think you can do both.
Yeah.
That's hard to do both. And which is one of the reasons why I think this movie fails.
Yeah.
But then later, and I'm not the first person to point this out, but like especially when Honest John shows up, and again, it's Keegan-Michael Key, who I like, and he's just doing bad lines. He's talking about being an influencer. There's a joke about what they're going to call Pinocchio, and he says we can call him Chris Pine. When Pinocchio gets kicked out of school, he's talking about like what the curriculum is at the school and different learning styles. All of these things are just going to make the movie not timeless.
Yes.
That's all it's going to do.
Yes.
It's just going to remind everyone that this movie came out around and about the early 2020s.
Yeah, and which is unfortunate because you can watch the 1940s one and go like, this holds up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works at any time.
Yeah.
So I like the script I cannot stand.
For every reason you might imagine that it wasn't good, think of all the reasons you might think a Disney live action remake of Pinocchio from 1940 would not be good, and I guarantee you it was not good in the way that you're imagining.
Mhm.
So let's move on.
We could spend an hour just talking
Yeah,
about this, so
but
we
let's
won't.
not.
Do you want to talk about the last one?
I really do.
Also in 2022, Guillermo del Toro released a stop-motion version of Pinocchio. This just came out. Spoiler alert, I thought it was really good.
Hey, you know the beginning of Up? You know about that?
Yeah.
Like that for that 20 minutes? You know what the world needed? Pinocchio, but like the first 20 minutes is like the beginning of Up. Just like a little story that stands on its own that makes you want to die.
It took us 3 days to watch this.
Yeah.
Because we started watching it. You couldn't handle it because you were not in the headspace to watch.
I was not in the
like
zone.
it is a full like 5-10 minute short story about Geppetto and his son Carlo.
Yes.
And about who you know is gonna die.
He's obviously gonna die.
Like
he's obviously gonna die.
Obviously gonna, because the narrator,
it's like he dies.
Sebastian J. Cricket, voiced by Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Beautifully.
It was
beautifully.
It was pretty
Oh,
funny.
we didn't even talk about Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket in the other one, like doing a terrible Jiminy Cricket impression. I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Totally miscast.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand it. So in this, you're like, okay, I know we're gonna see this kid die, and just to twist the knife, his life with Geppetto is really happy.
Yeah.
Geppetto loves him so much.
So much.
You were like, I cannot watch this tonight.
Yes.
I'm not in the headspace to watch it. And I said, well, luckily, I found out that there's this Bob Hoskins miniseries.
Yeah.
So that took us 2 nights to watch, and then we finally came back to it. So it took us several days to actually watch this.
Yes. Yeah. We know he's going to die, so it's terrible. And there's this sort of like this foreshadowing of like, ooh, Papa, there's planes flying overhead. How strange. And then like it's World War I Italy.
Yeah.
And right, so like this is the prequel because we're in World War I and then we're in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So World War I Italy, the bombs drop on the church and he's run back in to get his pine cone that he loves, and Geppetto's just like outside like crying because he knows his kid's already dead in the burning church. And this gets a little dark, but I said to you, I just want you to know that happens. I'm going in.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. Like that's fine. If we go together. It's totally fine. And you know that's how I feel. That's the level of this is like to make you think really fatalistic thoughts about like what you would do if your own kid's life was in danger and impossible to be saved, like how you would die together.
Yep.
Like that's the level of darkness that this takes you to. And then the movie goes, hey, do you feel sad right now? Look at me. I'm a talking bug. And then it takes you into the story of Pinocchio.
I think the tonal shift is beautifully handled.
It is. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it is a tonal shift, though.
Yeah.
So backing up for a second, so this is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. He co-directed it with Mark Gustafson, who has worked in stop motion for years. Del Toro co-wrote the screenplay with Patrick McHale, who worked on Adventure Time for a long time, and also, I believe, created Over the Garden Wall, which, like, the delightful things.
Yeah.
Someone who's created delightful things. And yeah, we get this whole opening. The stop motion, I'll say it, is fucking gorgeous.
It looks
This
great.
movie is just a delight to look at. Everything looks amazing. And so we get this beautiful opening where Carlo dies, and it's really sad. And Geppetto, who's voiced by David Bradley, also amazing. We see time pass,
Yeah.
and a tree is planted at Carlo's grave, and the tree gets tall, and so many years have passed in between, and Geppetto goes and visits the grave drinking every single day.
Yep.
And Sebastian J. Cricket decides to make the tree his home. He is a traveling writer.
Yes.
This feels very Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff with Sebastian J. Cricket feels very Wes Anderson, in a good way. And so then Geppetto, in an angry rage, cuts down the tree to make a puppet.
Yep.
One of these beautiful choices that they make, Sebastian's home in the tree is literally in Pinocchio's chest.
Yes. He is the heart of Pinocchio.
I love it. It's great and evocative and beautiful, and I love it. I'm here for it.
The cricket has, so there are songs in this. There are a few songs.
Mhm.
They're mostly like diegetic.
Yeah.
Like the character is singing. Like Pinocchio, when he performs, has a couple of different songs that he sings. But like the cricket keeps trying to sing this song about his father and keeps getting interrupted. And like It never happens. And I at some point I said to you, like, do you think he's ever going to get to finish his song? And you were like, no, absolutely not. And then he does get to sing it over the credits, the
Yes.
closing credits, which was very fun.
Mm-hmm.
That running joke is very, very, very funny.
Yeah. The music, by the way, Alexandre Desplat did the score. He works with Wes Anderson a lot, which is another reason it feels very Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Lyrics by Robin Katz.
He did Julie and Julia also.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things with the songs that I made a note about that I really respected is there is an I've Got No Strings scene.
Mm-hmm.
There is a scene where Pinocchio is now an actor and he is part of a puppet show and he's going to do a song.
Yeah.
And I love it because they're not even trying to compete with I've Got No Strings, because how can you compete with I've Got No Strings from the original Pinocchio? He just sings a song about gum and ice cream.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yes.
It's perfect because it is children's entertainment and all the kids are super into it.
Yep.
And that's all they need to do.
And then he sings a song about fascism and
Well,
how it's great.
Yes, he does. Well, that's the fascism thing. The first time that the town's Podesta does you rightfully pointed out to me that Hitler didn't invent the Sieg Heil. He kind of appropriated it from Mussolini and the Italians.
Right.
Because it came from the Romans.
Right.
So the first time there's a Sieg Heil in this movie, I was like, Nazis!
Are there Nazis?
No! But no, they're not Nazis. They're
fascists. Yes.
So yes, there are fascists. The whole thing has been moved. And so Pinocchio, as an example, doesn't go to Pleasure Island with Lampwick later in the movie and get turned into a donkey. Instead, he and Lampwick get sent to a camp to make soldiers out of kids.
To make fine fascist boys.
And gets turned into a fine fascist boy.
Yes.
Or they try to turn him into a fine fascist boy.
Yes.
Which is just another, that gives you an idea of the kind of differences they have in this.
I mean, Mussolini is a character in this movie.
And our Pinocchio sings a song to Mussolini about poop.
Because
he's trying to piss Mussolini off.
I mean, did you know that Guillermo del Toro, despite the fact that this is a movie about Pinocchio, did you know he's very interested in saying something about the Spanish Civil War?
Yes, I was aware of that.
This movie was pretty good.
Can I tell you my favorite part?
Yes.
Pinocchio's amazing.
Oh, he looks great. He's so like unsettling, but like in a really good way.
Like he's got so much energy. Like I was talking about that tonal shift before.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there is that little tonal shift where we go from the dead kid to Sebastian J. Cricket, but then we meet Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And he is insane and jumping everywhere and constantly talking, and he's hilarious. Like it's a joy to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it follows this opening that is, as you say, as sad as the first 10 minutes of Up. And it's a huge tonal shift, but they handle it really well. And Pinocchio is great. And the relationship between him and Geppetto is so good.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
It's good. It's a really good movie.
It's really beautiful. They get the character right. Another little thing they do that I really loved is that, so this is something I didn't love, but it's related to something I did like.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really think is holding this movie back from me like loving it and really talking it up as like just a really fantastic Pinocchio adaptation is it also steals from the Disney version because the Blue Fairy brings him to life at the beginning.
Yeah.
And yes, she is a weird chimera sprite from the forest, and it is very Guillermo del Toro. And yes, her sister is literally death, and Pinocchio dies multiple times in the movie.
Yeah.
And every time he goes and visits death and then comes back to life, it's very Guillermo del Toro. So there are entire subplots that are batshit, but a lot of them stem from the fact that like he did decide to make the Blue Fairy bring Pinocchio to life at the beginning of the movie. And it bums me out that that's just taken from the Disney version. But the Blue Fairy does say to the cricket, hey, hang out with this kid and make sure that he stays on the right path. And the cricket goes, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's dumb. And she says, I'll give you a wish. And he wants to be a writer. And he says, I get a wish? I could be published? I could be a popular author? Absolutely. Also, Pinocchio is my house. So they give us all these reasons for the cricket to want to stay with Pinocchio that they just give him a lot more depth than Jiminy Cricket has.
Yeah.
Because Jiminy Cricket, I don't think is much of a character in the original one.
Yeah.
But I think Sebastian J. Cricket is very much a character.
Yeah.
And I love him.
Yes. And then
I love the
he
cricket.
sacrifices his wish at the end to bring Pinocchio back to life.
Yeah.
Listen, we've talked about a lot of Pinocchios here today.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready to wrap it up. I don't know about you, but I would like to not talk about Pinocchio ever. If we talk about Pinocchio again, ever, It'll be too soon.
All right. Are you saying you want to do some quadrants?
I am saying that, yes.
Okay, let's do some quadrants.
Yes.
1940 Disney movie. Do you think they cared about the source material?
No.
Okay. Was it successful?
Obviously, yes.
Obviously. The Adventures of Bucatini, 1959. Do you think they cared about the source material?
It sounds like they did. It sounds like it was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even though maybe some people didn't know that it was really an Italian story.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
That Russian version of it is
Yeah,
very faithful.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Is it successful?
No.
No. 1965 TV special from the Prince Street Players. Do they care about the source material?
Absolutely not.
Is it successful?
No. Also no.
Are we happy we watched it?
Yes, we are.
Very much so.
We wish them all the best.
The Erotic Adventures of Pinocchio,
Oh my God.
1971. Did they care about the source material?
No.
Was it successful?
No.
Okay. The Adventures of Pinocchio, 1972 Italian animated movie. Did they care about the source material?
Definitely yes.
Deeply.
Yes.
Is it successful?
I would say probably not.
It depends.
I mean, depends what you're looking for.
Depends what you're looking for. We were looking for something that this movie was not willing to give us, and so we're going to go ahead and say it was not successful.
Yeah.
1976 TV movie musical Pinocchio, starring Sandy Duncan and Danny Kaye. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Absolutely not.
Was it successful?
Kind of, yes.
Yeah. Not kind of. Absolutely successful. 1978 BBC miniseries. Do you think they cared about the source material?
No.
Okay. I agree. Was it successful?
Also no.
Okay. 1984 episode of Fairy Tale Theater. Do you think they cared about the source material?
I think Shelley Duvall cared about making television adaptations of famous fairy tales. I think that was someone's passion project.
I think it was important to them to make a good show.
Yeah.
But I don't think they cared about Pinocchio at all.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
was it-
obviously they couldn't have because they were making a ton of different ones.
Yeah. But was it successful?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
For Lainie Kazan.
Yeah.
If only.
If nothing else.
1996 Adventures of Pinocchio, JTT. Do you think they cared about the source material?
I think they cared about the 1940 Disney movie.
You think so?
Yes.
Yes. I think that's where it came from.
Yes.
Was it successful?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
I do think so.
I'm gonna go ahead and say no.
Okay.
I don't think it was successful.
All
I
right.
think parts of it were successful. I think the puppet looks great, but on the whole, I think it's not a good movie.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can be swayed.
Okay. Geppetto.
We're gonna argue about this one though.
Yeah. Geppetto. Well, are we?
I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna say.
Okay. Geppetto TV movie. Did they care about the source material?
They cared about the Disney movie.
Yeah. So they did not care about the source material.
Yes.
And was it successful?
No.
No.
Okay.
Like
I thought you were gonna say yes.
No, it made me cry a whole lot, and I
Yeah.
really liked it. But mostly, like, I would love to have seen a better version of it.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, it's a really cheap TV movie that doesn't really work that well.
Yeah.
But it has potential.
Sure.
Even things that are not successful will make me cry
This is true.
real tears.
I know.
2002's Pinocchio, 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. If only we were reviewers whose reviews show up on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you think that Roberto Benigni cared about the source material?
Absolutely.
Was it successful?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. 2009 British-Italian miniseries, Pinocchio with Bob Hoskins. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Weirdly, I kind of think they did.
You think so?
But that by virtue, we have said before that versions that have the writer in the movie must care about the source material.
Yeah, but nothing that he was doing was anything that the writer did.
I understand that. Okay, fine. Then no. Sure. No. I was trying to judge it based on our previous standards. You know what? I kind of think they did care.
Plant your fucking flag.
I kind of think they did care. But
we can agree.
we can agree.
It was not
It was
successful.
not successful.
2012 animated Italian Pinocchio. Do you think they cared about the source material?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
I think they
I
did.
think they did.
It's
probably.
very faithful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was
Okay.
it successful?
Why not?
Sure.
It's a Pinocchio.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Crazy
I'm
to
not
me
going to
how-
say it's not successful.
Yeah, crazy to me how little time we spent on it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. 2019's Italian production of Pinocchio. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Yes.
Is it successful?
Yes.
Hard agree. 2022's first Pinocchio from Disney.
Yeah.
Do you think they cared about the source material, Carlo Collodi's The Adventures of Pinocchio?
No.
Was it successful?
Also no.
Hard agree. 2022's other Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Do you think Guillermo del Toro cared about the source material?
I think yes. I also think he cared about the Spanish Civil War.
I actually would say I don't think he cared that much about Pinocchio.
Yeah, there was a story he's trying to tell for sure.
Like, we didn't really talk about it, but there's as much of references in this to the first, like, Frankenstein movie
Yeah.
as there is to Pinocchio.
Yeah.
I think he just found something that would allow him to tell a story that he wanted to
Yeah,
tell.
that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Is it successful?
Yes.
Yes. We did it! We did
I
it!
can't believe we did it.
We did it! Hey, this has been Adapter Parish, everybody. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a comment on social media, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapter Parish Plus, our bonus show that releases between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/adaptcast.
I got no strings to hold me down, but I think my thing. I had no strings, 'cause I am a puppet. I got no strings on me.
Hey!